Place in Vancouver for the first of the Western semifinals. The British Columbia Lions home to Winnipeg. In fact, in about 30 minutes from now, we will have a special preview report from Don Whitman in Vancouver. Quick in the show, the Western Mustangs and the Acadia Axemen, the UBC Thunderbirds and the Bishops Gators in semifinal play this afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Sports Weekend Control in Toronto. We'll return you to vying for the national title in university football today being semifinal day. I'll tell you a couple of good games played out in Halifax in the Atlantic Bowl. The Western Ontario Mustangs, led by Blake Marshall over the Acadia Axemen. Western had been ranked number 2 in the nation heading into this football game. Meanwhile, the Bishops Gators hosted the Thunderbirds, ranked number 1 out of UBC in British Columbia. Bishops missing a 2-point convert in the final minute of play. UBC defeating Bishops by 2 points. So next Saturday, the Vanier Cup here in Toronto, the two winners, UBC and Western. On the subject of football, in just about 25 minutes from now, the CFL playoffs begin. The first game, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers meeting the British Columbia Lions for the 3rd consecutive week. The difference is, of course, this game is sudden death. And with an update from BC Place in Vancouver, here are Ron Lancaster and Don Whitman.
Well, Brian, for the 3rd consecutive week, it's the Winnipeg Blue Bombers against the British Columbia Lions. But one important lineup change this week for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Ron, the Bombers are very pleased to welcome back the Sheriff, Willard Reeves.
Well, I think they should be. You know, every football club has to have a power runner, and he's proven it over the years that he can get the job done inside when they need tough yards. So he's a welcome addition.
Most people seem to feel there's very little to choose between these two teams, despite the fact that the Lions have won all 3 games this year. In talking to many of the players, they seem to indicate the team that makes the fewest mistakes will win.
Well, you can't do anything different. You know, you got to do what you do best. That's block, tackle, throw, and so on. So you're not going to surprise anybody. They're familiar. 3 weeks in a row is very, very difficult to prepare for, and you have to agree the team that makes the fewest mistakes is going to win this game today.
So under the new playoff format this year in the Canadian Football League, 2 Western semifinal games. Tomorrow, Calgary against Edmonton, but this afternoon we'll be at BC Place Stadium as the Bombers take on the Lions.
All right, thank you, Donnie and Ron. And again, that football game coming up in about 22 minutes from now. Let's compare the British Columbia Lions and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Let's begin on offense. The big advantage here is to Winnipeg. Look at this. Number 1 in points scored. They are number 2 in total touchdowns. Number 1 in total offensive yardage. Number 1 by the pass. It's rather close, though, on the run. Winnipeg 7th overall, the Lions 8th. All right, the advantage in offense, no question, Winnipeg. The advantage on defense, though, goes to the British Columbia Lions. Look at this. The Lions have given up the fewest yards in the entire CFL. They are number 2 in sacks with 84, number 2 in fumble recoveries, and number 1 in interceptions. Football coming up at the top of the hour. Ontario Mustangs over Acadia 29-22. The UBC Thunderbirds over Bishops 32-30. Speaking of football, I'm going to change studios. Stay with us. Up next, it's the CFL on CBC, Winnipeg at BC. I'm Brian Williams. So long, everyone, from Sports Weekend Control.
Last weekend, this was the scene in the city of Winnipeg as the Manitoba capital was virtually paralyzed by 35 centimeters of snow, whipped into huge drifts by howling winds. Meantime, on the West Coast, the Blue Bombers were suffering their 2nd straight loss at the hands of the British Columbia Lions. 2 weeks ago, the Bombers dropped a 26-20 decision to the Lions as Roy DeWalt held a hot hand at Winnipeg Stadium. That kept alive the Lions' hopes of a 2nd-place finish in the Western Conference. And then last Saturday, the Bombers were guilty of 9 turnovers as they dropped a 36-24 decision, enabling British Columbia to finish in 2nd place. The Bombers dropped back to 3rd. BC has won all 3 games between the 2 teams this season. The Bombers, because of weather conditions at home, remained in British Columbia to practice for this week's semifinal against the BC Lions. Following a game last Saturday and a week of practice sessions under the dome, BC Place Stadium must almost feel like home field to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Hi Hi, everybody. They say familiarity breeds contempt. And if that's the case, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the British Columbia Lions must really be in a snarly mood this afternoon. Ron Lancaster, this is the third consecutive week these two teams have knocked heads.
You know, when you play a team 3 times in a row, there's no way you can definitely like the guy across the line from you. This is for all the marbles. The other games were for playoff position, but today ends the season for somebody. It's just a matter of going out there and knocking them around.
Well, the two teams have been knocking each other around the past couple of weeks. Injuries have certainly hit both teams hard. The BC Lions are without their 2 starting linebackers.
Yeah, it's a shame to lose Kevin Konar and Glenn Jackson the way they did, but you know, I don't really believe anybody on the field right now is 100%. They've had 2 real good hard football games, and I think today's will even be more physical than they were. So those little nicks, forget about them. Let's play the game.
The Blue Bombers have lost their middle linebacker, Darrell Patterson, but they welcome 3 people back. Defensive end John Sturdivant, cornerback Roy Bennett, and the most important returnee of all, running back Willard Reeves. Reeves went down in a game against the Hamilton Tiger Cats on August 7th at Winnipeg Stadium in a 36-30 Blue Bomber win. He's been out of the lineup for 13 weeks, and I asked Reeves if he had any apprehension about his return to the lineup today.
None at all. We went through a live workout the other day, and the defense was hitting me pretty good, and I just feel that I'm ready to go.
What precautions have you taken to protect the knee?
Well, we got a special brace for my knee, and it's been working really well. It's a very comfortable brace, kind of bulky, but really comfortable, and we feel that this is the type of brace that we need to wear.
Your teammates welcomed you back, I understand.
They welcomed me back very well, hitting, patting on the shoulder and everything, and you know, the guys have been really good. They're really happy that I'm here.
Are you confident?
I'm very confident. I'm ready to get back in there and play some football.
But getting here was only half the fun for Willard Reeves with that blizzard in Winnipeg on the weekend. He didn't get here till Tuesday. The team was here all week practicing. This is how Cal Murphy feels about it.
We really accomplished a lot. Our practices were very intense up until the last day, and you saw the last day. I thought the players were very loose, and I kind of like to see that in the last day because you can't have them uptight all the time, and I thought for the most part in the last day in the tempo you'd like to have them.
Ron Lancaster for the Blue Bombers, almost a training camp atmosphere this past week.
Yeah, that was really surprising to hear Cal Murphy say they actually scrimmaged on Wednesday in order to test the injury of Willard Reeves.
Well, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers will undoubtedly try and test Willard Reeves early in this ball game. The Blue Bombers will also be endeavoring to provide some protection for John Huffnagel.
Don, you know, we talk all year about the James Murphys, the Murph Fernandez, and these people, but when it comes down to the big games, they are won and lost up front. And that offensive line of the Bombers is going to have to keep them off of John Huffnagel. He ran for his life last week. That is not John Huffnagel's style. John Huffnagel likes to take the ball, straight back, read the defense, and hit an open receiver. And when he does that, he does it well. On the other side, Roy DeWalt, it seems to me, has an awful lot of time to throw the football in these last 2 weeks. The Winnipeg defense is going to have to get after him. But, you know, the BC offensive line was criticized an awful lot in September. But I think in these last 2 games, they have played excellent football in protecting DeWalt.
Most people seem to feel this game will be won in the trenches. We'll have the opening kickoff for you in just a moment. But right now, let's return to CFL Control and Brian Williams.
Thank you, Don. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to CFL Control in Toronto as we kick off the playoffs for 1986. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the British Columbia Lions. Now, these two teams last met in a playoff game just about 1 year ago. It was the Western Final, also under the dome at BC Place in Vancouver. We take a look at the winning touchdown in that football game. Freddie Sims on the handoff from Roy DeWalt. Of course, the Lions won the football game, went on to win the Grey Cup in Montreal over Hamilton. The playoff record between these two teams going back to '77, decided advantage to the BC Lions. And you talk about advantages. Let's have a look at the regular season from this year. All 3 games won by British Columbia. I'm not sure that will work against BC today. You know, by sheer numbers alone, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are long overdue for a win over the BC Lions. Coming up, a very busy halftime. Ann Medina will update national and international news. We will introduce you to the Shenley finalists for 1986. We'll have a couple of important final scores in university football today. Then we'll go to the Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton. Steve Armitage and Chuck Ely will preview the Calgary Stampeders and the Edmonton Eskimos. Don Martin will preview the Toronto Argonauts and the Hamilton Ticats. Winnipeg and BC just about ready to kick off. Stay with us. The CFL on CBC will continue right after this.
Bombers and the British Columbia Lions just about set to kick it off in this Western semifinal. The revised playoff format this year, of course, coming into effect. 4 teams from the West, 2 from the East. We'll have more as this game progresses. Tomorrow, of course, Edmonton and Calgary play at Commonwealth Stadium. And in the East, it's that 2-game total point affair involving Hamilton and Toronto. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers will be kicking off to the British Columbia Lions to get this game underway. Larry Crawford and Mel Bird are back to accept the kickoff from Trevor Kennard. The referee this afternoon, Ross Perrier. And crowd noise could be a factor, as it is so often under the dome. The fans coming to life as Trevor Kennard puts his foot into the ball, and it's taken by Bird from the 14-yard line. Bird is tripped up at the 20. James West was the first man downfield to upset Mel Bird, and that's where they'll scrimmage at the 20.
Well, we said Roy DeWalt's had an awful lot of time to throw the football, and he's going to need it today because I think this game's going to be established right off the start. It's going to be very, very physical. Excellent set of receivers. The 2 outside guys are their main threats, and that offensive line is going to get a workout, and I think it's going to be a very, very physical game, Don.
The Blue Bombers feel that they might put more pressure on DeWalt today because of the return of Roy Bennett. That should enable them to blitz more. They felt they had to drop their linebackers last week and help out a little more in pass covering. DeWalt down the sidelines for Sandusky, incomplete. He was being covered by Roy Bennett. It will be 2nd and 10.
Well, that man, Roy Bennett's certainly a welcome addition back to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Their front 3, Molly Sturderman, Mikowicz. Sturderman is the guy that's had the good year. Too bad he hurt his knee for a while, but he'll help him. Tracy Mack has to play. Daryl Patterson, who's had an outstanding season, he's injured today, so Tracy Mack will step in. And we said Roy Bennett, he's the guy that they missed. They like him on the corner, maybe the best cover in the league.
2nd and 10 for the Lions from the 20-yard line. Operating from the shotgun, DeWalt fumbles the snap. He can't get the pass away, and Stan Mikowicz drops him for a loss. Roy DeWalt mishandling that exchange from center, and that enabled that Winnipeg linebacking contingent to put the pressure on.
Really wasn't a bad snap. It wasn't real low. He didn't have to really go down and get it. He just took his eyes off of it at the wrong time, and, you know, that's great if you're a Winnipeg fan, but for BC, they got to punt from deep in their own end.
Lou Pasaglia stands back at his own 2-yard line, so the Bombers, for their first offensive series, should get the ball in pretty good field position. James Jefferson is the lone man back. He'll take the kick. He fumbles it and manages to get the ball back at the 42-yard line. He was very fortunate there.
Boy, I could just see Nelson Martin picking that thing up on the bounce and going the distance, or at least batting it ahead, because there's more orange jerseys down there than there are white. So John Hufnagel has good field position to start. You talked about Willard Reeves. He's the guy that's going to have to get the tough yards. We've talked all year about this set of receivers. They're excellent. These are the guys the pressure's on today. They got to keep off Hufnagel.
Hufnagel is intercepted, and this one will go for a touchdown with Keith Gooch.
Well, this isn't a great way to start it, but it's an excellent play by Keith Gooch. Watch him step in front of that 6-7-yard out pattern to Boyd, and when a cornerback picks it off out in that area, you're not going to catch him.
Well, he did not get into the end zone because they ruled that he stepped out at the 20-yard line, and on the replay, you saw that foot hit the sideline, so it will be 1st and 10 for the Lions at the 20-yard line. But that's what the Bombers did not want to happen. They were trying to avoid those turnovers that have proven so costly in the past. Into the end zone, it's knocked away by Scott Flagel, intended for Jan Carinci. DeWalt protesting to the official that Garinci in the end zone may have been interfered with, but it looked as though Fuego had good position on him.
Well, he did have good position on the receiver. He may have run into him, but what he did was smart. When the ball was almost at the receiver, he turned around and played the football. And, you know, you can't really call that. That is good defensive play.
At the 20-yard line, it's 2nd and 10 for the Lions, following that interception by Keith Gooch. The ball into the end zone. Fernandez can't get it. And it will be 3rd and 10.
DeWalt's going to complain again to the officials. Felt Fernandez was interfered going in with, but the ball was pretty well overthrown. I don't think he's going to catch it regardless of whether there was or wasn't any interference.
I talked with Fernandez before the game, had quite a chat with him. He was talking about the injury in the 2nd game of the season. He felt that injury, as it occurred in the 2nd game of the season, really hurt him because he was just getting into the flow. Then he was out for the 60 days, got back in, and he didn't feel he really got into good form until the first game against Winnipeg on November 2nd. The field goal attempt by Pasaglia is wide and will go for a single point. So the BC Lions come away with just 1 point following that Keith Gooch interception. We have 12:16 remaining in this opening quarter. Well, John Hufnagel's first pass of the ball game intercepted by Keith Gooch. Ron Lancaster, I know as a quarterback, you like to throw deep early, try and get those defenders to back off a little.
Everybody's got that adrenaline flowing right now, and Winnipeg has so much success with that down and out outside. I would like to come out early and pump it and throw it down the field 40 yards. If nobody catches it or out of bounds or anything, just to let that guy know, I'm going to throw deep on you. Don't you be crowding my receivers.
Stuman and Ulmer are in there at the linebacking position in place of Konar and Jackson. They've also made the change with Slater replacing Andre Francis. There's that hit screen to James Murphy, and Murphy is forced out of bounds at the 42-yard line by Nelson Martin and Melvin Bird. And at the bench, one Murphy confers with the other, head coach Cal talking with James Murphy, who will take in a play for John Hufnagel.
You know, sometimes an interception like Hufnagel threw on that first play can settle you down because you figure, hey, I've already had the worst thing that could possibly happen to me. It's got to get better.
It will be 2nd and 3, Winnipeg. The Bombers at their own 42-yard line. BC leading by a score of 1-0. Hufnagel trying to buy some time, trying to find a receiver, has one open. Poplawski takes it out of bounds at the 33 of the BC Lions.
Well, we said they're going to come after him again. They came with the blitz up the middle. You're going to see 91. Tyrone Cruz is coming. Hufnagel will manage just to get away again. This is, we said in the opening, he doesn't like to do this, but look at the opening. Poplawski saw him scramble and took off deep. A lot of people think that's luck, but it really isn't. They practice quarterback scrambles, and Poplawski will go deep, and then somebody will come out underneath, and Hufnagel found him.
For the 3rd consecutive year, Joe Poplawski will be a Shenley finalist as the country's outstanding Canadian. He'll be going against Rocky DiPietro of Hamilton for that award. The pass for Murphy! He can't hang on. Down at the 5-yard line, and what a jolt he took from Nelson Martin as he reached for that pass. He extended himself. He had the ball in his hands, but couldn't hold it, and he is hurt.
Don, we've said many times, whenever you're throwing a ball to the post, if that ball is not on the way immediately, this is a collision course, and this is what is going to happen, and you cannot blame Murphy for not holding this football. Look at the hit that Nelson Martin takes or puts on him. Now, Nelson Martin was a little bit groggy getting up himself, so, I mean, he went ahead and stuck his head in there and got the job done, but that is one heck of a hit.
Nelson Martin decking James Murphy, who was fully extended, reaching for that Hufnagel pass. Murphy is the Western nominee for the Shenley Award as the country's outstanding player. And the 1986 season represents a 180-degree turn in fortunes for James Murphy. A year ago, he felt somewhat ignored and unwanted. He nursed injuries through the last half of the season and suffered away from the field as well. But this year, he feels more confident with management, knowing they want him. He has those quick feet. He runs more disciplined routes and has had an outstanding year, establishing a record of 116 receptions.
Well, that is the way you play defense. When that ball is in the air, and we talk about throwing the ball inside, that middle safety, in this case, Nelson Martin, is a center fielder. Go to the football, and if the receiver has his hands up, let him have it. And that's exactly what he did. I think Murphy will be back.
Randy Fagan goes inside. Perry Tuttle goes to the wide receiver position with Murphy to the bench. It will be 2nd and 10. Good protection for Hufnagel over the middle. Pass is complete to Sean Kehoe. He fumbles the ball. It's lateraled off, and Ulmer is down at the 34-yard line. It almost looked as though Sean Kehoe was attempting to lateral the football.
I don't know if he was attempting the lateral, but he didn't put it away, and when you get hit from behind, you're going to fumble.
Turnover is what the Bombers have been attempting to avoid. 2 costly errors early in this game.
Illegal pass. BC, first down.
The flag thrown as the result of a forward lateral by the BC Lions after that fumble recovery, but they get it back at their own 24-yard line.
Well, there it is over the middle. Now, Kehoe's going to run, but he's got that ball out. And then when Cruz comes from behind, all you have to do is grab the player's arm, and it's going to fall out of there, and that's what happened. And then Nelson Martin, he made the forward lateral.
Nelson Martin has made 2 big plays so far for the Lions. There's the pass to Sandusky on the hitch screen, and Sandusky is out to the 31-yard line, stopped there by Benny Thompson. When you look at the comparative statistics between these 2 teams over the course of the 3 games they have played, Winnipeg has turned the ball over on interceptions 11 times, on fumbles 5 times.
And BC only 4. 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions, and that has been the difference in these 2 football teams this year.
On 2nd down, Anthony Parker trying to get that first down. He'll be very close. The most amazing bit of information about Anthony Parker, 6'2", 220 pounds. At Memphis in college, he long jumped 25 feet and high jumped 7 feet.
That is hard to believe at that size, to be able to get that much weight over a 7-foot bar in high jumping.
You and I have trouble stepping on and off a curb.
I tripped over one last night.
Pass complete to John Pankratz. Pankratz is dropped after a pickup of a couple of yards as he and James West engage in a little pushing and shoving after the whistle, but nothing serious develops. We talked about feelings between these 2 teams running high. Winnipeg, according to place kicker Trevor Kennard, in a real snarly mood coming into this game.
Well, they have to be in a snarly mode. You know, 2 straight losses to a team, and then to have to play them in their own backyard, you got to be snarly. Go out there and knock people around, and this defense has got to do that today.
James West, nicknamed Wild West during his days with the Calgary Stampeders. The pass to Fernandez. He makes the catch for a first down close to midfield. He took that throw in front of Roy Bennett.
Boy, did he let that one go. That is watch him step and throw the football. This is what we was talking about, time to throw, so a quarterback can step, get that weight forward, and get that arm in. That ball's in the air 20 yards downfield. Now, if they get up in his face and he can't get that forward step, he doesn't have the strength to get it there that quick.
Fernandez swings out wide to the right. Sandusky to the left. BC leads by a score of 1-0. DeWalt put it in the air again, looking deep for Fernandez. He makes the catch. Yes, it's good, down at the 10-yard line.
Well, on that particular play, Roy Bennett had as good a coverage on Murph Fernandez as you can have. That's just Murph Fernandez's athletic ability to look back over his head and catch the ball looking backwards and stay in bounds. Nothing wrong with the coverage, just an outstanding catch.
He only has to get 1 foot down in bounds, and Swervin Mervin did just that inside the 10-yard line. It is first and goal for the BC Lions. 7:54 remaining in this opening quarter. The winner will advance to the Western Final against either Calgary or Edmonton. DeWalt's pass to the sidelines intended for Carinci is incomplete. Delbert Fowler was over defending against Jan Carinci. It will be 2nd and goal from inside the 10.
Yeah, they're going to get called on pass interference too. The BC Lions, that's almost like a pick play.
Forward pass interference, BC number 24.
They try to throw the ball to Carinci, and on the play, Fernandez comes in from the outside and tries to shield the defensive back. The referee caught him.
The play that set it up, 46 yards to that man, number 24, Mervin Fernandez. There's a dedicated Lions fan. Penalty takes the ball back to the 20-yard line. DeWalt looked particularly sharp against the Bombers on November 2nd in that 26-20 triumph at Winnipeg Stadium. A game that ended in a snowstorm, but nothing to the blizzard of last weekend. Sideline pattern and bounced out of bounds as Anthony Parker. He was hit by Delbert Fowler. They spot the ball at the 13. Second and goal from that point. 1-0, the Lions lead. A missed field goal attempt by Lou Pasaglia following the interception return by Keith Gooch on Winnipeg's first offensive play of the afternoon. DeWalt into the end zone, incomplete. He overthrew the intended receiver, Carinci, and it was almost picked off by Benny Thompson. Thompson was deep in that end zone, and that forces the Lions into a field goal attempt again.
Thompson was just sitting back there, going to take anything that came deep into the end zone, and when DeWalt threw it, he came up to catch it. It was just a little bit low, and he couldn't hold on. So 2 times now the Lions have been down there, and they haven't been able to get it in the end zone.
Well, they started from their own 24-yard line following that fumble recovery by Nelson Martin. Fumble, recovery, and an interception. And this field goal attempt is good as the Lions lead it by a score of 4-0 with 6:43 left to play in the opening quarter. We'll be back right after this.
Rick Johnson, Ray Alexander, the Cinderella Calgary Stampeders, the great story of 1986. Tomorrow afternoon, they go north to the Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton. Look out, though. Matt Dunnigan is healthy. The Stampeders and Eskimos fight it out for supremacy in Alberta beginning at 4:30 Eastern.
A single and a field goal by Lou Pasaglia as the Lions lead at 4-0, and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Ron Lancaster, I would suggest, are fortunate that they only trail by 4.
Could just easily be 14. You know, when Gooch intercepts, he could score if he doesn't step out of bounds, but then they don't get in. Fernandez makes a great catch, gets them down inside the 10. They don't get in, so 4-0. They should be happy with that.
3 deep for Winnipeg: James Murphy, James Jefferson, and Darrell Sampson, as Jan Carinci prepares to kick off. The kickoff chores have been taken over by Carinci. Early in the year, you'll recall, Lou Pasaglia was injured. As a matter of fact, it was while he was hurt and Mervyn Fernandez was punting in a game in Edmonton that Fernandez was hurt and was lost for 60 days.
Yeah, for a while during the season, it didn't look like anybody wanted to do the kicking because they were all getting injured.
Jefferson takes it, fumbles the ball at the 10-yard line. And Jefferson is stopped at the 27-yard line by Paul Nastasiuk. Well, Jefferson twice has had some problems hanging onto that football, once on a punt and on that kickoff return. John Hufnagel must be wondering if he is snake bit playing under the dome.
Well, right now they've had about 4 or 5, as you say, a fumble by Keogh, 2 by Jefferson. They just got to put a march together and get things under control and get relaxed and get into the ball game. They'll be okay.
First and 10. The fans trying to become a factor as they set up a roar as Hufnagel tries to call out signals. Throws the pass to Willard Reeves, and Reeves gets the first down before being taken out of bounds at the 42-yard line.
Well, John Hufnagel, the offensive line, we said the pressure was going to be on them. They gave him enough time to throw the football that time, and the pass that he did throw complete to Reeves was his last chance. He just lobbed it out there, but they gave him enough time. The BC defenders covered him well.
With that crowd noise, the people who have the greatest problem are the tackles. They cannot see that ball being snapped. The guards are close enough to the center that they can see the ball being snapped, and with the movement of the ball, they can start their forward progress, but the tackles don't have that luxury. Willard Reeves is across the 45, a gain of 4. It will be 2nd and 6. You never had the opportunity to play under the dome, but you've talked to quarterbacks on visiting teams, and it really can be a problem.
Yeah, especially if you want to try to call an audible at the line of scrimmage, your receivers are in trouble. I mean, you try not to do it in this situation.
Sideline pass intended for Poplawski, incomplete. He was being covered by Larry Crawford, so Winnipeg is forced into a punting situation.
Yeah, you saw John was a little upset. Hufnagel was upset with himself because he had the receiver open and he threw it high and too far, and that does upset you a little bit because it forces you to turn that ball over again.
Larry Crawford is the only man back for the BC Lions. Bob Cameron had a punt blocked against the Lions. A very costly block for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in that 36-24 loss. Good kick taken by Crawford. And Crawford is stopped at the 26-yard line. Now, there was a penalty flag, but the player who had encroached upon that 5-yard area made no attempt to get involved with the play.
Yeah.
So there should be no penalty.
It really shouldn't.
No yards. Winnipeg number 30.
Well, there's going to be.
There is going to be a penalty, but as I understand the rule, and you take a look at it, Darrell Sampson makes no attempt to make the tackle.
Yeah, he got out of the way and never came back and got involved in the play after that, and I always thought that that was no penalty, but doesn't matter. They got 15 yards anyway.
That takes the ball out to the 33-yard line. 1st and 10 for the BC Lions. Lions lead it by a score of 4-0. The wall is decked by Rob Prodanovic as he tried to cut back. Tracy Mack was also there.
This is going to be a quick pattern. You'll see the wall. Now, he's ready to throw. No one open. He pulls it back down, and this is, we talk about Prodanovic not being real big and strong, but he has quickness, and he put a good hit on him there.
Rob Prodanovic, a rookie who played collegiate football at the University of Calgary. Because of injuries, he was thrust into a starting assignment and has done a good job. The screen to Anthony Parker. He gets a couple of good blocks, but he'll be stopped short of the first down at the 40-yard line. Benny Thompson from his defensive back position came up to make the tackle as Parker is 3 yards shy of that forward marker.
Yeah, they're willing to give him that. They drop back, their linebackers back, try to take that deep one away from him. You got a lot of yards to make up even after you catch the football, and he ran well, but just came up short.
Jefferson 20 and Sampson 30 are back for this 3rd down kick by Lou Pasaglia. 3:52 is the time left in this opening quarter. The Lions in front 4-0. Jefferson fields the ball, can't get away from Keith Gooch, who was downfield very quickly and wrapped him up at the 31-yard line. So the Bombers will scrimmage from that point, trailing by 4 with 3:42 left in the quarter. Well, since the Dome in Vancouver, they say that the BC Lions have never played a football game when it has rained. Today it is raining, so they are indeed fortunate to have the protection and the fact the game is being played inside. Not a real heavy rain, but just enough that it would make conditions much more difficult. First and 10 from the 32-yard line. Got the pass away intended for Sean Kehoe. He was hit from behind just as he threw by James Parker.
Well, we talk about the BC Lion front 4, and they only bring 4 here. You can see Parker getting around Richard Nemeth. He comes in from behind and hits Hufnagel just as he's throwing. Very fortunate they didn't call him in the grasp of the defender and call it a sack, but it's awful difficult to stop him one-on-one.
Parker, the Schenley nominee from the West for the country's outstanding defensive player award. Draw play, and Willard Reeves is going nowhere. He's in the grasp of James Parker, who has made 2 big plays back-to-back.
2nd down and 10 yards to go, and it almost looked like they wanted blitz, but they'll drop him out. Now, we're going to put a game on where James Parker would come in, and as luck would have it, if you do things right, you'll end up where the ball is. Parker starts now. He's going to come underneath to rush the passer. Reeves shows up, so does Parker.
Well, as many of the players said in our discussions with them prior to the game, meeting a team for the 3rd consecutive week, there's very little that you do differently, very little that you don't know about the other team's offense or defense. 3rd down kick by Bob Cameron. Crawford takes it. He's hit immediately by Darrell Sampson. And again, a no-yards call.
I don't think we can question this call. He was on the run.
No yard. Winnipeg number 30.
So the Lions, with that contact by Sampson on Larry Crawford, will improve their field position. An interception, a fumble, and 2 no yards calls now against the Blue Bombers. And with 2:36 left in this opening quarter, I think they're fortunate only to be down by 4.
Well, they sure are. They need a big play from this defense.
Draw play with Parker. And Anthony Parker is tripped up at the 52. A gain of about 3 yards. Make it 2nd and 7. Parker isn't as quick as Kevan Jenkins, the man he replaced, but he has more strength. He gets those tough yards for you. And he's a tremendous blocker, according to the coaching staff.
Yeah, I think that was the key in that win in Winnipeg on that cold day down there when it snowed. His ability and his power to run inside.
DeWalt getting the time to throw on the sidelines. Is the pass complete? Yes, they rule that Pancratz made the catch.
The ideal place to throw the football. Watch the Winnipeg linebackers drop out. Now that's a zone defense, but watch him throw it over top of Jefferson's head right down in the hole. That's the hole in the zone that receiver tries to get to. Pancratz, being around 7 years, certainly knows that. He found it. Big first down.
He's had a good year, but his best year as a BC Lion was back in 1983. Up with it. He was being covered over there by James Jefferson. It will be 2nd and 10.
Well thrown football by DeWalt. Thrown it far enough to where if anybody was going to get it, would have been Jim Sandusky. Good coverage by Jefferson. Just the way it goes.
It will be 2nd and 10. The BC Lions at the Winnipeg 36-yard line with 1:04 left in this opening quarter. The Lions leading Winnipeg by a score of 4-0. DeWalt operating from that shotgun. He gets away from the initial pressure. He's got Fernandez open. You can't afford to give DeWalt that much time to throw.
What you just say, Don, is absolutely right. They had the pressure on him. Now, he's covered, but as any good receiver will do, when the quarterback gets in trouble, he'll find an open area. Roy Bennett was running in circles, but he had him covered, and if they make the tackle in the backfield, this play never occurs. Instead, big play for the Lions.
1st and 10 from the 16. Here's the reverse with Fernandez. He's got some blocking help out there. He scores. Number 65, Gerald Roper.
Well, you want the ball in the hands of your best football player, and in this case, who else? He's made 2 big catches for him. He may as well score the touchdown. They love to run that reverse with him. Here he comes. Little toss from DeWalt, and now he's just looking for help. Gets some good blocks inside. Sandusky tries to make the block on Jefferson, gets in his way long enough. Now he just lowers the head, gets one more step, gets into the end zone.
And the injured Winnipeg player is Tyrone Jones. He was hurt on that reverse by Merv Fernandez. And they are looking at the left foot, it would appear, of Tyrone Jones. The Bombers are already without Darrell Patterson, their outstanding middle linebacker, and concern on the face of Cal Murphy. He thought his team was ready to play coming into this ball game, but very early they have committed a couple of costly turnovers. Turnovers that proved to be their undoing last week.
Well, I think both coaches would admit you're ready to play in a game like this. And as when we were talking to Tyrone Cruz downstairs before the game, we asked him about playing a team 3 weeks in a row, and he says when you're two teams of equal ability as these two are. It's going to come down to the team that makes the mistakes. And so far, the Bombers have made the mistakes. BC hasn't capitalized on them enough, but they got the lead.
1984, Ty Jones, signed by the Blue Bombers as a free agent, was the club's outstanding defensive player in the Grey Cup triumph. He was the MVP, and last year he was the Shenley Award winner as the best defensive player in the country.
There's the block that gets Tyrone Jones, number 68, John Blaine. And then it looked like he catches that foot or else the shoulder hit it. But it looked like the foot just in the artificial turf stuck. And he went over on it a little bit. Looks like he's in a little bit of pain.
That was the final play of the opening quarter. The point after by Lou Pasaglia. And the BC Lions move in front by a score of 11-0. And we'll be back with the second quarter and the BC kickoff right after this message. Well, two of the very key statistics of the first quarter down at the bottom of the screen. Turnovers, 2 by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And the BC Lions have taken advantage, 150 yards in net offense as they lead it by a score of 11-0. And as Cal Murphy explained in our discussion with him today, Ron, those turnovers, that self-destruction that seems to be a disease when Winnipeg plays BC, is afflicting them again.
Well, that's the biggest fear a coach has, that you're going to turn that football over. Now, when you turn it over, bad things usually happen. They're very fortunate to only be down 11 points. It could have just easily been 21.
Well, the second quarter just about set to get underway as the BC Lions will prepare to kick off to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And the Bombers have to get their offense rolling, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if John Hufnagel continues to struggle a little, that Jim Zorn might get the call.
You know, I was thinking of that, Don. If you're going to put Zorn in, get him in early, because then if he doesn't go, you can come back to Hufnagel, but don't wait till the fourth quarter.
Jan Carinci kicking off. James Murphy takes it at the 10-yard line. And Murphy works his way out to the 36, where he's stopped by Larry Crawford. Well, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have lived primarily with the pass, as that statistic indicates. Cal Murphy, the head coach, indicated that they would go the aerial route for the most part again this afternoon, even with the return of Willard Reeves.
Well, talking with him before the game, he said they don't want to get in the habit of running first down, throwing second. They are going to throw it on first down every time.
Boyd is open. He makes the catch at the 50 for a first down. Keith Gooch was there to make the tackle. Can't play pitch and catch any better than that.
No, that's an excellent throw, because Gooch was really close to him. But Hufnagel's going to go. It's just a simple turn-in pattern by Boyd. Turn to the quarterback, get the ball there when he turns. And if he hadn't, Gooch would have knocked that one down. Good offense, good defense.
Winnipeg 1st and 10. The ball at the 49-yard line. Intended for Murphy. Interference called against the BC Lions. Greg Stuman bumped James Murphy as he was attempting to come back for that throw.
BC number 26. First down.
First and 10 at the 50-yard line. Slater is playing the corner, replacing the injured Andre Francis. What an unusual injury for Andre Francis. On Tuesday, he sneezed, according to Coach Don Matthews, and pulled a muscle in the rib area, and was unable to practice all week and unable to play. A penalty flag is down. The catch is good. Boyd was unable to hang on. What a hit he took from Larry Crawford, and he's hurt.
Well, we said it was going to be a physical football game, and boy, it is. Those receivers downfield, when you come inside,
Winnipeg number 70.
they're going to get called for offside. I think they'll probably decline this, but when you come inside, you have to expect to be hit. Boy, Crawford and Martin, they put two pretty good licks on them.
Wideouts. Murphy and Boyd have certainly paid as they have attempted to reach for throws. The penalty has declined as Pat Cantner goes into the ball game. Sean Kehoe comes out for Winnipeg. 13:30 remaining in the second quarter. Winnipeg's 2nd and 10 from the 50 of the BC Lions. The screen to Willard Reeves. He can't break the tackle. Walter Ballard was there and wouldn't let Reeves get away. Hufnagel faked as he was going, though he was going left, came back to the right side to Reeves.
Let's look at the play just a minute ago, Don. Here's what the problem is. When he goes down the field and cuts to the inside, there's going to be a big hole. But that ball has to be thrown before he gets too deep. Now watch, you'll see Boyd coming in. Now there's the hole. It has to get in there right now. The ball is in the air too long, and that allows that defensive back to come back and put that type of hit on the receiver. That's a quarterback problem. He's got to get it in there quicker.
3rd down kick by Bob Cameron. Taken by Larry Crawford. And Crawford is stopped at the 13-yard line. That kick traveled 44 yards. Mark Moore's downfield to make the tackle with 12:47 remaining in this first half. 11-0. The Lions lead Winnipeg. The Lions are back at their own 13-yard line. Don Matthews has to be pleased with the punishment his team has delivered so far. 2 very solid hits by Larry Crawford and Nelson Martin. A little more balance in the BC attack last week in that 36-24 win that clinched 2nd place.
Donnie being an old defensive coach, you know he loved that. He loves those hits.
Ty Jones is back out there at his linebacking position for Winnipeg. Penalty flag on the play. I think it will go against the Blue Bombers as Anthony Parker is tripped up by James West. But there appeared to be some movement on the left side. And it will go against Winnipeg.
Offside, Winnipeg number 72.
Talk about speed. Watch, it's all speed. Cuts inside, gets that arm out, and trips up Parker. That's the same thing he did on the opening kickoff. And when he makes a good play, he lets you know about it. I was watching him dance down in the end zone just before the kickoff. He's having a conversation with the fans. He loves to play, doesn't he? I think he really enjoys it.
It always appears as though James West is having fun during the course of a ball game. 1st and 5, Anthony Parker hit by James West. Stan Mikolas and Ken Haley also in on the tackle. It will be 2nd and 3.
2nd and 3. I think we're going to see him run that football again. When you got the 220 pounds at that running back position in your own end, this is a good time to use him.
11:48 is the time remaining in the half. The BC Lions leading this Western semifinal by a score of 11-0. There's the pitch to Parker. He gets the first down. Ken Haley came up to make the tackle. Parker has been running well, and his running was most effective in that November 2nd, 26-20 win on a snow-covered Winnipeg Stadium.
I was really impressed with him. That was the first opportunity I'd had to see him play. We've always seen the BC Lions, outside of John Henry White, who's mostly the blocker, we've always seen their running backs be small, quick guys. This guy is powerful, and that's what you need for playoff time. You've got to make and turn over those 2nd and 2s.
Fake inside as DeWalt is looking deep. Incomplete. Intended for John Pankratz, who was being covered by Benny Thompson.
That wasn't a wise throw by DeWalt. Benny Thompson's upset because the ball was thrown short, but for DeWalt, it was in the ground, so it's a safe throw. But, boy, that's a gamble when you put it in the air that far downfield.
Second and 10. The ball is at the 27-yard line. And that's a significant statistic. DeWalt has only thrown the ball to a Blue Bomber on 2 occasions this year. That pass to Pankratz, he's stopped by Ty Jones. He'll be stopped short of the first down. The BC Lions are forced into a punting situation.
That's one of the things Winnipeg has changed a little bit over the course of the year. They've been dropping Tyrone Jones back into the pass coverage more. And when we asked the coaches about that earlier in the year, they said the reason for it, teams were getting onto him, always rushing him, so they had to change the look. So drop him back, let him get into the pass coverage.
Luke Pisagni is kicked, taken by by Jefferson. And he is stopped at the 44-yard line by Gerald Roper. So with 10:17 remaining in the first half, the Blue Bombers will scrimmage 1st and 10 from their own 44. Well, the Lion cheerleaders have certainly had more to cheer about than any fans who may be yelling support for the Blue Bombers this afternoon. Under the dome here at the stadium at BC Place, the site of the Grey Cup game on November 30th. And of course, you'll be able to watch all the excitement of Grey Cup week and the game itself on CBC television. Hufnagel is forced out of there, tripped up by James Parker. Parker is hurt. He lost his helmet on the play. Now, I'm not sure if he may have got the foot of John Hufnagel in the face as he made that diving tackle, but he certainly came flying through to sack the Bomber quarterback.
All they want to do is clear this area out and let him break out. But because of the rush of this man who contains it to the outside, when a quarterback rolls out, you have got to get containment. And watch Parker get outside the blocker. Keep him outside. If he tries to get outside you, you have to chase him down. As you see, the receiver was wide open. Hufnagel never had a chance.
James Parker going off. He has to go out for one play. But it appeared as though he caught the foot of John Hufnagel in the face. From the 30-yard line, the handoff to Willard Reeves. He goes nowhere. Stopped by linebacker John Elmer. So John Hufnagel has had some problems getting that Winnipeg offense going. His very first pass attempt was intercepted. Then it appeared as though he may be moving the team. Sean Kehoe fumbled the ball.
Everybody will say that wasn't a good call. You know, you got to put it up and make first down. But second down at about 21, that's a long throw. And BC would have just sat back in the with about 8 people back there and just give him anything short and maybe intercept it. So they're going to punt it and play defense.
They were going after a block on the Bob Cameron punt. It's taken by Larry Crawford, and Crawford spins his way out to the 40-yard line. Well, we talked earlier about Sampson being downfield on a third down punt, and he was called for no yards, although he did not make contact with Larry Crawford. Well, for clarification on that rule, no yards is waived only if the ball hits the ground and bounces back toward the punting team, and the players are making an attempt to vacate the area and do not participate in the tackle. So while the ball was caught in the air by Crawford, the no yard stood. The officials were right once again. Anthony Parker up to the 48-yard line, stopped there by Ken Haley.
Well, we talk about the job that the BC Lion offensive line has done. And, you know, when you have a running back that can gain yards, that gives the offensive line just that much more confidence. They know if they get him a little bit of a hole, he will get 8, 9 yards, and he got 8 on that one.
6 foot, 210-pounder who played at Memphis in the United States Football League. Penalty flag. I think the Bombers were offside as Anthony Parker gets the first down.
I believe it was Tracy Mack.
Big number 61.
The man who has replaced Darrell Patterson at that middle linebacking position moved prior to the ball being snapped, and the BC Lions, rather than the gain, will take the yardage. 5 yards, moves the ball out to the 53. Jeff Boyd having some problems. Guess that Boyd is going to remain on the bench for a few plays. He's still suffering from that hit that he took in reaching for a pass earlier in the quarter. Deep down the sideline, Sandusky makes the catch in front of Jefferson. They rule he was out of bounds.
Nice throw. Sandusky pulls it down. You see where that foot lands on the line, and the referee trailing the play. He's got an ideal shot at it, makes a good call. DeWalt saw the blitz coming. Scott Flagel was up on the line of scrimmage. DeWalt went to that one-on-one, which is the ideal situation.
2nd and 10. Lions are at the 53. They run the reverse again with Fernandez, and Fernandez manages to get to the outside. He'll be close to the first down. With that great athletic ability, Mervyn Fernandez turned what almost appeared to be a loss into about a 7 or 8 yard gain.
Look at him using his eyes. He sees Bennett chokes it off and forces him back inside. Now it's just speed, and the man to come over to make that tackle is Ken Haley. And the surprising thing to me is Ken Haley is the leading tackler on the Bomber team. Usually you would think a linebacker, but in this case it's a defensive back.
The ball is at the Winnipeg 49. 3rd and 2.5, and the Lions are going for it. They have confidence in Parker, and he gets it.
You know, Don, maybe that long jump that we were talking about earlier, did you see him take off 1 foot and just kind of dive? This is an excellent performance by him. Watch him take off. He comes up, he needs 1.5 yards. He comes off that left foot or right foot, bang. Look at that. Good form.
Well, we said earlier that Parker of Memphis State was an outstanding athlete. 25-foot long jumper, a 7-foot high jumper, and he certainly put his body into the air to pick up the first down on 3rd and 3. DeWald is dropped for a loss back at the 48-yard line. Really the first time that the Bombers have got to the BC quarterback this afternoon. Earlier, they made a sack, but that was more the result of a fumble.
That's what we said in the opening. He's had an awful lot of time to throw, and you can't give him that much time. And 57, Sturdivant, that's the guy they wanted back in the lineup, has managed to get that arm up. Very fortunate that wasn't a fumble, but that's what they've got to do, is get the Roy DeWalt.
Sturdivant missed the last 2 games against BC as the result of an injury, and the Bomber coaching staff was pleased to get him back playing that defensive end position. Second down pass complete to Fernandez. He gets away from one tackle from Cook. He'll score.
This is just a remarkable play. You know, I don't know why we're surprised. We see him do it all the time, but an outstanding play by Mervyn Fernandez.
The point after by Lucas Saglia. There's a penalty flag on the play.
Procedure, BC number 65.
Well, they'll move it 5 yards back and attempt that extra point again. But what an athlete Mervyn Fernandez is. We have talked on many occasions about his tremendous athletic ability. He absolutely turned Ken Haley inside out. The only man who had a shot at him back at about the 10-yard line. He faked to his left. Haley went for it, came back to his right, and he went untouched into the end zone. And the point after by Fasaglia is good, making it an 18-0 ball game with 5:51 left in the half. Well, I think right now Mervyn Fernandez has a pretty good shot at being one of our Carling O'Keefe game stars.
Well, look at that. I mean, that was a harmless pattern. It was only a 7-yard throw, but look what he does with it after he gets him. And look at poor Ken Haley. He has no idea where he went. The more you watch him, the more you have to admire his athletic ability. And what a nice person to go along with it. That's what I like even better.
Well, Fernandez missed a chance to participate in last year's Grey Cup triumph by the BC Lions because of injury. He was named the country's outstanding football player and Shenley Award winner. He would dearly love to get a Grey Cup ring this year. If he continues to play that way, I think the Lions have got a shot. James Murphy has to go back to the 3-yard line to handle the kickoff. On the sidelines, he goes down at the 25-yard line.
Don, we're going to go back and look at that touchdown. Now, the thing that's amazing is all the receivers are over there. So watch Fernandez. He just kind of jogs off the ball and catches about a 7-yard pass. You always talk about running. Watch him. He's not in any hurry. Jog down the field, turn around, catch it. Now, this is where your athletic ability has to come in. Bennett misses him. He just cuts back before Ken Haley never had a chance.
John Hufnagel continuing at quarterback. Hufnagel in trouble. Mel Bird.
The Winnipeg Blue Bombers are going to have to do something real quick, Don, if they're going to get back in this ball game. The BC Lions are getting stronger with every play. Parker puts on the run. Bird has Poplawski covered. Right now, he just lets him go and comes up and makes the hit. They're getting awful tough. Bird's only 160 pounds, but he doesn't hit like that.
This BC defensive unit has been fired up from the opening kickoff. The Bombers with 3 receivers out to the left. They throw inside to Joe Poplawski. He gets a first down to the 40-yard line. The lad has momentarily silenced the crowd under the dome. Tyrone Cruz, the middle linebacker, came over to make the tackle. One of 3 receivers on the Winnipeg roster this year to go over 1,000 yards. The last time that happened was in 1981, when both Edmonton and Winnipeg had 3 receivers over 1,000 yards. The hit screen to James Murphy, and Darryl Slater was reading the Winnipeg playbook.
Well, you notice how you mentioned that pass to Poplawski got the crowd out of it. When Slater comes up and makes a play like that, he puts him right back in there. And Winnipeg has got to control that football and get some points in this quarter.
Back at the 37-yard line. It is 2nd and 13 Winnipeg. A loss of 3 yards on that pass to James Murphy. Intercepted. Oh, he can't hang on. Larry Crawford had a chance. And Hufnagel's throw was well over the head of the intended receiver.
And you see who was helping Hufnagel up off the ground. Number 40, James Parker. You know, a lot of times, like he had 22 sacks to lead the league, but the sacks aren't the big thing. It's how many times he forces that quarterback to throw the ball high.
Larry Crawford, the all-time interception leader for the BC Lions, unable to hang on to this John Hufnagel throw. But there's the pressure from Parker that you talked about. Third down kick by Brian Cameron. Larry Crawford, the only man back.
Richard! Ain't going anywhere.
And he is stopped at the 30. Darrell Sampson was downfield to make the tackle. The BC coaching staff and many of the players said prior to the ball game that they felt it would be the team that made the fewest mistakes would emerge the winner in this semifinal battle. So far, the Lions have not committed the errors.
Talking to Steve Barato downstairs, just as we were, Don, the last thing he said when I walked away from him, he says, if we beat them up front, we win the ball game.
3:10, the time remaining in the half. Jim Zorn is warming up at that Winnipeg bench. Anthony Parker picks up about 4 yards. So we could be seeing Jim Zorn the next time the Winnipeg Blue Bombers get the football. We only have 3:02 remaining in the half. At halftime, we'll bring you up to date on the latest news developments. We'll also preview the other playoff action this weekend. Calgary at Edmonton, Toronto at Hamilton. We'll take a look at the finalists for the Shenley Awards. We'll have CompuStats and highlights of the first half of this ball game that so far has been all BC.
Well, they sure have dominated it. 15 minutes, 12 minutes, and Winnipeg's not in it yet.
2nd and 6. There's the handoff to Parker. Parker got away from one tackle. He'll get the first down and more. It appeared as though he was going to be trapped for a loss, and still managed to turn it into a first down.
An excellent job up front by Gerald Roper. It's just like a Statue of Liberty, but watch number 65, Gerald Roper, as he comes around the corner. He's leading Parker now. He's out blocking, and he stays with this guy forever. There's the block. He's blocking on James West, and he's the one that springs him. Excellent job of blocking.
Rob Prodanovic had made that initial penetration, but was unable to stop Anthony Parker. Parker again to the outside. Still on his feet. Still fighting. He's got 8 more.
Well, we talk about James Zorn. Watch his throwing motion. You know, they always talk about quarterbacks coming over the top, but he doesn't. Most lefties don't. They come with a whip action from the outside. We get a chance to watch him throw the football. I watch him. He takes it now. He just kind of whips it. Boom. He doesn't come over the top. I was watching him and Tom Mickey, the other quarterback, warm up. Mickey comes right over the top in that classic style, but Jim Zorn, he kind of whips it out there. Those lefties all do that. I don't know why, but they do.
2:07 the time remaining in the half. The way the BC Lions are marching, Zorn might not get an opportunity to play until the 3rd quarter. Complete to Jan Carinci. First down at the Winnipeg 50-yard line. Benny Thompson made the tackle, but it's another BC first down.
You have to be impressed with the way Roy DeWalt's mixed these plays up. He's ran reverses on first down. He's run that statue play to Parker twice on first down. When he needs that ball, when he needs time to throw, they're giving it to him. The BC Lions are on a roll right now, and Winnipeg, as you say, with 1:45, they've got to put the brakes on.
The Lions in this first half have pretty much been having their own way with Winnipeg. DeWalt again over the middle. John Henry White, another first down.
Watch John Henry White come out of the backfield, and Tracy Mack, the linebacker, has got him man-to-man. So when he swings out of here, he makes the collision, but White sneaks inside of him. Now Tracy Mack's looking at John Henry White. Now here he comes. You got him. He gets a good hit, but you see who fell down, and that opens it up. He makes the catch, and they're in scoring position again with 1:34 left.
And Tracy Mack is the injured Winnipeg player as the Lions are on the march at the Winnipeg 32-yard line. Tracy Mack added to the Winnipeg roster for this game following the injury to Darrell Patterson last week.
Tracy Mack had the position on John Henry White. You tell that linebacker, if that receiver wants to come upfield, you run with him. If he tries to cut back inside you, you knock him down. Well, he tried to knock him down. He lost the battle.
Vernon Paul comes into the ball game as Tracy Mack, a product of Missouri who has been with Winnipeg all season, goes to the bench. He's only seen action in a couple of ball games as an injury replacement. DeWalt throwing deep for Sandusky, incomplete.
Well, Stan Micka was put pretty good hit on DeWalt just as he was throwing, but they didn't allow Roy DeWalt to set those feet the way a quarterback has to do. Watch him. He sprints to his left. Now that pocket starts to collapse. He's looking for a place to go to. Here comes Stan Mikowitz, and just as he lets it go, DeWalt was standing flat-footed. When he threw that football, he wasn't able to step and throw like he likes to do.
Ron Matthews made an interesting comment about DeWalt yesterday. He said, later in the season, it seems that DeWalt becomes faster. It seems that he loses a few pounds, becomes quicker back there, and is much more mobile. Well, we have seen evidence of that, but with people to throw to, such as John Pankratz, he really doesn't have to run with that football.
Well, you don't really, they don't want DeWalt to run around with that football. All they want him to do is have that quickness to avoid that rush and get rid of the football. You'll look at it from the end zone. Just stops, sets back. Now there he comes underneath. He's got to get rid of it. He goes to Pankratz. Benny Thompson's there to make the hit. So Pasaglia is going to have the chance to increase the lead.
But it almost seems as though DeWalt is moving that pocket around, too, not giving Winnipeg any opportunity to really go after one area.
Most defensive coaches will tell you that they like to play a quarterback that they know where he's going to be. Anybody that moves around a lot makes it harder to defend.
Lou Pasaglia adds to the BC Lion lead with 55 seconds remaining. The field goal from 40 yards out makes it 21-0. The BC Lions totally in control of this Western semifinal.
Well, Jim Zorn has gone into the ball game with 55 seconds left. For him and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, it would be nice if he could get some points on the board in this last 55 seconds. Don't turn it over and go down anymore, but they can't sit back and play conservative. They've got to try to move the ball.
It slipped through the fingers of Tyrone Cruz. I thought he had that ball.
I almost figured that the BC Lions would sit back with we said, less than a minute left, but they sure didn't. They came on the blitz right away. They were going to test the new quarterback. Number 91, Tyrone Cruz, is coming, and Michael Gray finally gets there, but they didn't waste any time putting the pressure on Jim Zorn, and it almost was an interception, and that could have been lights out.
It's 2nd and 10. Zorn completes the pass to Poplawski. There's also a penalty flag in the play. .44 seconds, the time remaining.
Forward pass interference, Winnipeg number 22.
Well, they caught Perry Tuttle on a pick pattern, it appeared, on the throw to Joe Poplawski.
Well, there's James Parker. We talk about him as a pass rusher. He's coming back in, trying to fake. Oh, Mike Hamlock does a good job. Gets that big left arm up there and stops him cold. Every now and then he does get blocked.
Darnell Clash.
Boy, they miss him, don't they? He's excited.
Sitting at that BC bench. Catch by Keith Gooch, the pass intended for Jeff Boyd.
He's pleading his case. It's a good trap, though. Short hop.
Well, the Winnipeg quarterbacks are certainly having their problems this afternoon. An omen, I suppose, a bad omen on the very first play of the game when Huffnagel was intercepted.
That seemed to set the tone, didn't it? Because it's been all BC for the entire first 30 minutes, and they set it on that opening play when Keith Gooch made the interception.
Well, the BC Lions, with 40 seconds remaining, will get the ball back and might just be able to add to their lead before the half ends. Bob Cameron's kick to Larry Crawford at the 38-yard line, and Crawford goes down at the 44 with 32 seconds remaining on the clock. A 49-yard kick by Bob Cameron.
Pretty good move by Crawford. Get down on the ground. You got 32 seconds, and with the way DeWalt's been throwing that football, they have a chance to put some more points on the board before halftime.
DeWalt has looked very sharp this afternoon. He at times has been the target of criticism on the West Coast.
I'll tell you one thing that he has to be happy with. Don Matthews has stuck with him through all the controversy, the media, the fans, and everybody, and he's usually delivered for them, and he's on track again.
Anthony Parker battles his way for a gain of 8 yards. Stopped by Roy Bennett. Well, not only has Winnipeg had problems contending with the throwing of Roy DeWalt, they haven't solved the running of Anthony Parker. He has carried 10 times for 67 yards.
It's not a bad average, is it?
Procedure!
Again, first down this time with John Henry Lloyd, and he fights for the Winnipeg 42. There's a penalty flag back at the line of scrimmage. The tackle made by Scott Flagel. It will be a procedure call against BC. Carlton Watson, the backup quarterback, standing there observing, watching the play beside Coach Don Matthews. You'll always see that backup quarterback very close to the coach.
Yeah, he should be close to him. What he does is usually they chart the plays or they're talking to somebody. They always have a clipboard in their hand, and a lot of times if Don Matthews is calling the plays, he knows what it is. He can write it down, but you want to be close to him to offer any advice you can. In most cases, it isn't much because they don't want it. But if they ask a question, you better have an answer.
Procedure call takes the ball back to the BC 49-yard line with 11 seconds remaining in this first half, and the Lions leading 21-0. You know, I talked about Roy DeWalt, the fact that he has been the target of some criticism during his career with the BC Lions. Whenever he has faltered, the Boo Birds have got on his case. It almost seems as though he has to perform some magical trick, make an elephant disappear or something before the fans will be completely satisfied with his play.
It's just amazing that the success that Roy DeWalt has had here with the BC Lions. And it just seems like every time we've come in here, there's always questions of why don't they play somebody else. And I don't know why they'd ask it. I'd never take him off the field.
DeWalt trying to dump it off to John Henry White as he was under pressure from Rob Vodanovic. That takes the clock down to 7 seconds, and it's third down, BC. And the BC Lions send out the punting unit. Now, do you think the Lions might try something here with just 7 seconds left?
I wouldn't think so. You know, I think with a 21-0 lead at the half and the opportunity to go in with that lead at halftime, I think you just take it easy. Don't do anything to let them back in the game.
Move over!
Saglia's kick is going to bounce out of bounds, and that will end the first half.
Yeah, he must have practiced that, because as that ball rolled out of bounds, the last second went off the clock, just like he knew what he was doing.
So the BC Lions head for the dressing room, and they have dominated through 30 minutes, and they lead it 21-0. Now, for our halftime show, let's go to CFL Control with Brian Williams.
All right, thank you, Don Whitman. Coming up at halftime as we come back to CFL Control in Toronto, and Medina will have this announced this week here in Toronto. We'll update two big university football games played this afternoon. The Vanier Cup participants have been decided. We will preview the games that go tomorrow. Steve Armitage and Chuck Ely will report on Calgary and Edmonton, and Don Martin will take a look at a series with some great history. That's Toronto and Hamilton. Stay with us. Our halftime show is up next as the CFL on CBC continues. All right, thank you, Ann. And again, the Saturday Report with Ann Medina coming up on most of these stations following this football game. Well, the Shenley Award finalists for this week were announced here in Toronto, and at this point, let's introduce them to you, the 86 finalists. Let's begin in the rookie category. The Eastern nominee, Toronto linebacker Willie Pless. He has missed a good part of the season. The Western nominee, Calgary's defensive lineman Harold Holman. Speaking of linemen, in the lineman category, the Eastern nominee, a 9-year veteran, Miles Gorell from Hamilton, 11-year veteran, Roger Aldag from the Saskatchewan Roughriders in the West. Now, for outstanding defensive player, both happen to be linemen. Brett the Toaster Williams from Montreal, 21 sacks. James Quick Parker, a two-time winner from the BC Lions. Let's go to the Canadian category. Both are former winners. Hamilton's Rocky DiPietro, a winner of the Shenley in 1982. Joe Poplawski, a two-time Shenley winner. You're watching him in action today. And for the first time in Shenley history, two receivers are going to go head-to-head in the outstanding player category. Montreal's James Hood, an Alouette record this year, 95 receptions, and James Murphy, a league record of 116 receptions. The Shenley finalists for this season. And, of course, the Shenley Awards presented Grey Cup week in Vancouver. University football this afternoon. Let's begin on the East Coast. A couple of good football games. Western Ontario Mustangs ranked #2 over the Acadia Axemen, 29-22. Blake Marshall, 193 yards and 24 carries. The Central Bowl played in Quebec today. I tell you, UBC ranked #1, receiving a scare. Terry Cochran had 3 touchdowns. They beat Bishops. Bishops missing a 2-point conversion in the final minute of play. The Vanier Cup next weekend, numbers 1 and 2, UBC against Western. The Canadian Junior Championship on this afternoon. They're in the 4th quarter. That is out of Taylorfield, Regina. The Regina Rams leading the Ottawa Sooners 40-12. Stay with us. We'll preview the games tomorrow as the CFL on CBC continues. There are 2 more games scheduled tomorrow. We're going to preview them both. Toronto plays at Hamilton. Going back to that 2-game total point format that has so many great memories. Let's begin, though, with the Calgary Stampeders and the Edmonton Eskimos from a cold Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton. Here's Steve Armitage.
There are 2 key stories here in Edmonton on the eve of the semifinal game between the Eskimos and the Calgary Stampeders. One obviously involves the weather. They're calling for temperatures of around -4 for game time tomorrow with blowing snow. The field here at Commonwealth Stadium is still frozen, although they have had a tarp on it all week long. The other story involves the running back Gary Allen. We've just left the press conference. The Calgary coaches tell us that Allen with strained knee ligaments will not dress and therefore will not play in the game tomorrow. His place in the the backfield will be taken by Ryan Potter. Chuck Ely, come on in and let's talk about the playing conditions here at Commonwealth Stadium. They could be a big factor.
Well, definitely. I think, Steve, what you pointed out about the frozen field could be a factor, definitely. The temperature air-wise is not that bad, but they could get into problems with the wind if the wind comes up.
How much will the Stampeders miss the running of Gary Allen?
Well, I think it's going to change their game plan some, because they're going to miss that running back ability to run through on this type of turf. Now, the problem you get into there, it changes your game plan as far as now going from a running game that you can use maybe 35%, going down to 20% and trying to pass more. If they have to rely on the passing, then they can have a problem.
How effective can Rick Johnson and Mac Dunnigan as quarterbacks be in this kind of weather?
Well, again, it goes back to the type of turf. Now, you mentioned the field is covered, but if you can't plant and you can't get set up enough, you have a problem in dropping back and throwing the ball. So we'll have to see as the game progresses.
So that's the story here in Edmonton, the weather and the fact that Gary Allen will not be the running back for the Calgary Stampeders in this half of the Western semifinal. And now let's leave the cold west and head east, where Don Martin is standing by with the story on the Eastern final.
Thanks, Steve. Both coaches would like to win this thing using pinpoint passing or breakaway running or solid defense. But if it all works out the way it did a quarter century ago, it could come down to just one kick. At least that's what the Argos' Dave Mann hoped back in 1961 on the final play of the second game, when a single point would have won it for Toronto. But Garney Henley in the end zone turns around and kicks it back out. Again, Mann kicks it back toward the Hamilton end zone, but this time Henley runs it back all the way for a touchdown. It was wiped out by a penalty, but the Ticats were so pumped up, they went on to win the series in overtime by 28 points. 25 years later, kicking has again played a large part in the success of both the Ticats and Argos. Hank Olisic set a CFL record with over 8,000 yards punting and 22 single points.
I've changed my technique a little bit. We get the ball off a lot quicker, therefore no reason in my face, and it's very difficult to block.
Ilisic's partner and co-MVP for the Argos, Lance Chomick, started the year with a team record 14 straight field goals and finished with 37 on the season, while learning to enjoy the pressure.
You have to in order to be a kicker. You know, if you're not looking forward to that kind of situation, then you shouldn't really be around. That goes with the job, and that's something that everybody looks forward to. You have to want the ball, and you have to want to go out there and do your job.
While Chomick was setting club records, Hamilton's Paul Osbaldiston was trying to set a record for clubs. He filled in for both BC and Winnipeg before winding up in Hamilton.
I think the pressure has come from replacing the people that I've had to replace. Lou, Trevor, and Bernie. They've all, three of the best kickers in the league for the last 6-7 years. That's where the pressure has come from, is living up to their standards.
Osbaldiston, a Shenley nominee, has done that and more. A 36-yard field goal in the final minute against Ottawa that meant first place at the time. But that was easy after an even longer kick in Saskatchewan that avoided a Ticat loss.
I just wanted to do my best to help out the club and build up a good reputation around the league.
And now the reputation of the defending Eastern Division champions goes on the line in Game 1 tomorrow in Hamilton. This is Don Martin. Now back to Brian Williams at CFL Control.
I'll tell you, Don, that matchup brings back some great memories. I can remember being in the stadium in 1961 when Bernie Filoni and the Cats came back to beat Tobin Road and the Argonauts. The Western matchup tomorrow should be a good one. We'll have it live for you at 4:30 Eastern. Right now, though, Don Whitman, it is back live to you at BC Place in Vancouver.
And Brian, unless there's an amazing second half turnaround by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the BC Lions are going to be in another Western final. Statistically, in that first half, they totally dominated, running up 201 yards more total offense than the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Look at that stat. Just 88 yards for Winnipeg, 2 very costly turnovers for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. On the first play, an interception by John Hufnagel. Then the next time the Bombers had the ball, Sean Kehoe fumbles, Nelson Martin recovers, and that led to a BC field goal. They were in front early by a score of 4-0. The Bombers were fortunate that they were not trailing by 14 points at that stage. But then Merv Fernandez conducted a clinic here under the dome, and the BC Lions enjoy a 21-0 halftime lead. We'll return with Ron Lancaster's analysis and highlights, but first, this message. 21-0 the halftime score. Ron Lancaster, what have you picked as the highlights?
Well, I think very quickly, the first play of the game, I think, as we mentioned earlier, sets the tone. Hufnagel on a quick out pattern. What an excellent play by Gooch. He returns it down to the 20-yard line. Winnipeg dodges the bullet. They don't get a touchdown scored on them. They give a single. But then Murph Fernandez, as you said, puts on a clinic. What a play. Nice reverse. Here he comes. Gets a good block by John Blaine on Tyrone Jones. Gerald Roper makes a block. Sandusky tries to help out, and Carinci finally does it, and then Fernandez puts it in the end zone. So that was one good play. In that drive, he made a great catch to set it up. But look at this one. Nothing looks very harmless, just a 7-yard hook. But here he goes. And boy, I'll tell you, we keep saying, why are we amazed? He does it all the time. But he puts this into the end zone, and that's the story of the ball game. The other thing that the defense of the BC Lions is, when you can shut down Winnipeg, the best offensive team in the league, to 88 yards and a half, you're playing some game.
Well, the BC Lions will be kicking off to Winnipeg to start the third quarter. Murph Fernandez with 2 touchdowns so far this afternoon. And as far as the Winnipeg Blue Bombers go, who will they come back with, you anticipate, as a quarterback? Hofnagel, or will it be Zorn?
Boy, I'll tell you, that's a tough decision, because you got to go with somebody that can win it for you. Now, you're not looking for experience now, you're looking for points. I have a feeling they're going to go with Zorn. That's a tough decision right now. It would have been nice for Zorn to get like 3 or 4 minutes in the second quarter to see how he was going. But right now, he's going to have to go in and get the job done. They have 30 minutes or they go home for the year, and a lot of pressure on him. Huff's had a great year, though, hasn't he?
Well, John Hofnagel had to take over following the injury to Tom Clements, and he had quite a string of successes before he lost the 2 games back-to-back to the BC Lions to end the regular season. The kickoff is taken by James Murphy at the 10-yard line as the third quarter is underway. And Murphy is stopped at the 35-yard line. And it is going to be Jim Zorn continuing as the Winnipeg quarterback in the third quarter. But Cal Murphy said that he would juggle his quarterbacks if neither was able to move the team. So if Zorn is unable to get the Blue Bomber offense rolling, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see John Hofnagel back in there.
Yeah, you've got to keep fishing around now to get something that's working. You don't have time to be holding anything back now. Let's get the job done, and it's up to Zorn to do it.
Zorn, with his first pass attempt of the third quarter, throws over the head of the intended receiver. It's 2nd and 10.
Took the quick drop, 3 steps. That means he's going to throw it quick. Held it a little bit too long. Same problem throwing short in the middle as when you throw long. You better get it in there in a hurry, or you have problems with collision courses.
Zorn, as a free agent, acquired by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers following the injury to Tom Clements. He was sitting at his home in Seattle when Cal Murphy sent out the call, and Zorn responded. This is what Zorn does much better than Hofnagel, his scrambling ability, but he is stopped short of a first down by Rick Clausen.
BC Lions be very content to let Jim Zorn do that, because when he's running, he's not throwing, and most quarterbacks that I know throw better than they run. At least that's where their big plays come from. I'll tell you one thing, he gave it every chance. He looked at downfield as long as he could. Then Clausen come back to catch him. So they still come up 4 yards short.
An interesting first half stat. The BC Lions had possession of the ball for 19 minutes and 15 seconds. Winnipeg for 10 minutes and 45 seconds. That's why it's 21-0. Larry Crawford takes the kick at the 20-yard line. And Crawford is taken out of bounds at the 35. A good run back before being stopped by Vernon Paul. And now I'm sure uppermost on the mind of quarterback Roy DeWalt and other members of the BC Lions is to try and continue playing error-free football. They've got enough points.
That's the key. The error-free part of it, I think, Don, is most important. I think they're going to force Winnipeg into the situation where they're going to have to blitz them almost every play and hope for a turnover. So if they can play error-free football, they can win it.
Okay. Zorn and veteran Joe Kozlowski discussing what they will do the next time they're out there as the penalty is marched off against the BC Lions, taking the ball back to the 10-yard line.
Well, if you want a big play from your defense, you got them back to their own 10. This is a great time to come up with it.
The Lions with their first offensive series of the second half, back at their own 10-yard line. Another first down. He's running at will through that Winnipeg defense.
Well, you know, it's nice. is they have Fernandez here, and every time they've brought him this way, it's been the reverse. This time they just hand it to him and they fake the reverse. All right, here comes Fernandez. The only thing they've shown off this is the reverse. They fake it, catch Winnipeg by surprise. Instead of being on the 10, they're on the 26.
We said earlier he doesn't have the quickness of a Keevan Jenkins, but he certainly has the strength. He broke a couple of tackles there. He breaks more as he fights his way out to the 33-yard line. He's carried 11 times for 78 yards.
Well, he's only averaging 7 yards a carry. I don't know if that's good enough, is it? I think the only one in the league averaging 7 yards is Ken Hobart, and he's quarterback.
Gain of 5 and 2nd and 5. Anthony Parker, an All-American high school player in Kentucky. Draw to one. Is dropped back at the 28-yard line, short of the first down. Delbert Fowler was the man who came through to get the BC quarterback, and they help each other up.
What I noticed during that defensive set out there is Vernon Paul, 74, is playing inside linebacker. Tracy Mack has moved to Tyrone Jones's spot. Tyrone has got a foot case down on the bench. I don't think he's going to be back today.
I think we've seen the last of Tyrone Jones in this ball game. As you said, he has that ice pack on his foot. He played in that second quarter despite the injury. And Tracy Mack has also been battered and bruised throughout the ball game, and he now is coming off. So the Winnipeg Blue Bombers could be hurting at that linebacking position.
What's been their strength could be taken away from them today. We expected a physical game, and it is.
Zagley with an excellent kick on third down. Jefferson gets away from the first tackle, but then is taken out of bounds by Schumann at the 31-yard line. That's where the Winnipeg Blue Bombers will scrimmage with 11:41 remaining in the third quarter, and Jim Zorn continues at quarterback. Tyrone Jones, the country's outstanding defensive player last year, the Winnipeg linebacker, has missed the last few series because of an injury suffered in the second quarter as trainer Ross Hodgkinson continues to work in retaping that left foot. However, I don't know whether we'll see Tyrone Jones back in the ball game. The pitch to Willard Reeves. He gets about 3 yards. I'm sure there must be football fans all across the country who are as amazed as you are, Ron, that the Lions have shut the Winnipeg offense down the way they have.
I just, you know, when you have a high-powered offense like Winnipeg has, you expect them to move the football. They may not score, but I don't think anybody, and I know I'm included, thought they'd only have about 88 yards in 30 minutes of football. That just isn't the way it's been with Winnipeg, and I know Cal Murphy can't be very happy.
2nd and 8, Winnipeg. Zorn is in trouble, gets the pass away, incomplete. It was deflected by John Elmer, intended for Perry Tuttle. And Zorn was fortunate that he was able to get that throw away.
Well, you know, Zorn made a heck of a play getting away from that first defensive guy that grabbed his helmet, but when he lost his balance, he should have never thrown the football. He may as well take the sack and forget it and kick it, because he was very fortunate it wasn't intercepted.
There was also a penalty flag back at the line of scrimmage.
Disqualification, Winnipeg number 38. Disqualification, BC number 78.
So Walter Ballard and Willard Reeves have been ejected from the football game. And that occurred after the ball was thrown. And Cal Murphy appears to be rather calm and composed at that Winnipeg bench, despite the fact that all the pieces have been falling about him.
Well, you were watching Cal. I was looking on the other side. Coach Matthews wasn't particularly happy with Walter Ballard being thrown out. He's one of the guys they count on getting to that quarterback, and now he's missing. Of course, Willard Reeves is gone, too. You hate to see that. I don't know exactly what happened, but two excellent football players. Cal Murphy's going to get an explanation.
I didn't hit him. Oh, poof.
Well, he didn't agree with it.
Tyler Ballard, of course, also thrown out of the ball game.
Boy, he's really come into his own this year as a pass rusher. He'll really help him down the road.
Third down kick by Bob Cameron. Bobbled a bit by Larry Crawford, but he still manages to pick up some yards on the return and very casually steps out of bounds at the 36-yard line. So Willard Reeves, the man who is nicknamed the Sheriff because he is enrolled in the police academy down in Tucson, Arizona, and plans on going back there to become a member of the force in the offseason, heads to the dressing room from one side, Walter Ballard from the other. I hope the two don't meet in that very narrow exit heading to the dressing room.
You know what, I'd like to see them meet because I just have a feeling that those two guys would probably apologize to one another and keep going.
Over the middle to Carinci, a penalty flag on the play.
Receiver, BC number 27.
Well, I watched them all the way to the locker room. They never got close to one another. Willard went his way and Walter went his.
Well, you were watching Ballard and Reeves. The officials were watching Jan Carinci. He was the ineligible receiver on that play, so that takes the ball back to the 26-yard line. Perhaps you could explain how a man, normally a receiver, becomes ineligible.
When there's a man on the line of scrimmage outside of you, saying Fernandez is a wide receiver, and then Carinci steps up on the line, he is now a lineman. He is not an eligible receiver because he's not on the end of the line. He has to stay a yard back.
Draw play with Anthony Parker. And it seems every time he gets the ball, it takes 2 or 3 to bring him down.
Well, that's what they told us the first time we did their game down in Winnipeg 2 weeks ago, and no reason to change our opinion. That's exactly what it takes. When he gets hit by one guy, he just usually bounces off and keeps going.
Second and 18. The ball is sitting at the BC 28-yard line. 21-0 is the score. 9:16 remaining in the third quarter. The pass is intercepted. Jefferson picks it up, looking for some blocking help, and he is stopped at the BC 37-yard line. Jan Carinci made the tackle. There's also a penalty flag on the play. And Jim Zorn with some final instructions from Coach Cal Murphy to direct the attack.
Don, you talked about even earlier that Roy DeWalt is moving the pocket around. Tracy Mack come from the outside. He underthrew it. Jefferson come way back inside and got it. So they are moving DeWalt around a little bit and making it a little bit harder for those Winnipeg defenders to find him. Winnipeg suffered the 15-yard penalty. I think it was unnecessary roughness. So they still have the ball midfield. We still got 9 minutes in the third quarter. They're not out of the ball game, but they've got to get the offense going.
Jefferson with the interception. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers, of course, retained possession. That roughness took place after the interception by Jefferson. It was actually on the return, so the ball is swatted back at the Winnipeg 54. That's where the Blue Bombers scrimmage 1st and 10 under the direction of Jim Zorn. He underthrew Jeff Boyd. It will be 2nd and 10. Zorn has had some problems.
He's thrown it into the ground. Quite a few of the balls that he's thrown today, I know of at least 3 that have hit the ground short of the receiver.
Jim Zorn signed through the 1987 season. He says he wants to play. 33 years of age. He has a great attitude, unbridled enthusiasm, and willingness to do whatever necessary to help the Blue Bombers try and win. This one is dumped off to Perry Tuttle to the 50-yard line. Stopped short of the first down.
Problem is he's going to be 5 yards short of that first down. It's going to make it 3rd down, so it's a decision time for Murphy. I think he's already made it. Looks like they're going to kick it. If they have any tricks up their sleeve, now's the time to use them.
Punting unit goes out there as Zorn comes off to the bench. 8:23 is the time left in the third quarter. 21-0 is the score. The BC Lions leading the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Third down kick. angling it out of bounds. Not a good kick by Bob Cameron. He did not get nearly the distance he was looking for. He was trying to angle it out of bounds, and you see the expression on his face. That tells the story as the ball is spotted at the 24-yard line.
And the other thing on that punt formation, the BC Lions had been lining up and coming after him with all the pressure in the world. They only put 5 guys up and dropped the rest back just in case Cal Murphy had another trick play ready.
That was only a 26-yard kick by Bob Cameron. So the Lions get the ball at their own 24-yard line. The interception by Roy DeWalt does not prove damaging. The screen to Jim Sandusky. He's tripped up at the 31. James West came across to make the tackle.
It's a long way for a linebacker to go. He's lined up inside. He goes all the way to the wide receiver position to make the tackle. That's quick. It
will be 2nd and 2. And Anthony Parker is going to get it out across the 35-yard line. Well, the Canadian Junior Football Championship was up for grabs this afternoon. Not surprisingly, the Regina Rams added another national title, 53-12 over the Ottawa Sooners. The Rams have been one of the dominant teams in junior football for about the last 20 years.
Well, they're a good organization. They do a good job, and they really look forward to the national finals. I was told the other day that they had over 10,000 seats sold, and you know how cold it is on the prairie.
At the 41-yard line, Vernon Paul makes the tackle on Anthony Parker. And right now, I think we're going to see a lot of Anthony Parker. I think the BC Lions will concentrate on a ground game. Not only are they moving the football successfully, they're also chopping seconds off that clock.
If he has a bigger pair of shoulder pads, he should put them on because he's not going to have to catch it anymore. He's going to take a lot of hits.
All Jim Zorn can do is watch and hope that they'll get the ball back quickly. Bounce to Mervyn Fernandez. He did not make the catch as that ball bounced in front of him. Vernon Paul had roared over from his linebacking position, but Fernandez made no attempt to even move with the football. He knew it had hopped in front of him.
I think I'd put number 12 back in the ball game.
Well, we might very well see John Hufnagel. Both have their helmets on at that Winnipeg bench as Lou Pisaglia gets set. 3rd down kick. And it bounces out of bounds at the 37-yard line. That's where the Winnipeg Blue Bombers will scrimmage 1st and 10. And John Hufnagel is going back in.
Well, Zorn just wasn't able to make any first downs at all, and I really think that the time is gone to be messing around. It's time to put it up, take your chances, and when you put it up, you can get them intercepted, you can get sacked, you can get everything, but that's your only hope.
And now, of course, the Bombers are also without Willard Reeves. They have both Pat Cantner and Sean Kehoe back there. Can't find the receiver, and he is down at the 39-yard line. He has been taking a beating, as a matter of fact. He even had the left shoe yanked off his foot by John Elmer.
The BC Lions have changed up a little bit of everything. They're coming to John Hufnagel with a lot of different things. Again, number 40, James Parker, is going to come around to the outside, and he's going to make the play.
Hufnagel tying his shoe. But the 20-second clock is running, and he will have to hurry. He only has 6 seconds to get this play underway. He succeeds. Over the middle to Pat Cantner. 1st down, Winnipeg to the midfield stripe. Stopped there by John Elmer. Pat Cantner was one of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers who enjoyed the week of practice here in Vancouver. He's from Richmond. His parents and friends live out there, so he had a week of visiting with friends and relatives.
Just swung out of the backfield into the open area, and Hufnagel found him and made the 1st down, and that's a big one because they've got to get it going.
from the midfield stripe. Hofnagel rolling to his right, being chased out of bounds by Nelson Martin and James Parker. You saw Nelson Martin over on the sidelines after Parker was out of bounds, grab Hofnagel and just hold him up.
I was afraid if he gives him any push at all, they're going right over the bench. And, you know, that's not what the game's all about. Martin grabbed him, held him up. You know, they're going to hit you as hard as they can between the white lines, but they usually will take care of you outside.
A gain of just a yard. It will be 2nd and 9, Winnipeg. Boyd wide left, James Murphy out to the right. Over the middle, Joe Poplawski makes the catch. No, they're ruling no catch. He didn't have possession of the football when he went down at the 45-yard line.
Both officials, one behind him and one in front of him, saw that ball come loose and hit the ground, so they got to give it up. Now we'll see the pass. There's Poplawski, goes right through his hands and hits the ground. The referees are right on top of it, so it's 3rd and 9.
Well, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have prevented the BC Lions from scoring in this 3rd quarter. But unfortunately for Winnipeg, they haven't been able to score either, and they trail by 21 points. Crawford takes the kick at the 5-yard line. He's been doing an excellent job of returning that football. He gets it out to about the 18 after that 49-yard boot by Bob Cameron with 3:22 remaining in the 3rd quarter. All the scoring has taken place in the first half of this football game, and the BC Lions are now 18 minutes and 22 seconds away from advancing to the Western Final against either Calgary or Edmonton. Steve Armitage and Chuck Ely are in Edmonton, and they'll be bringing you that game on the CBC television network tomorrow afternoon from Commonwealth Stadium. And of course, in the East, it's a 2-game total point affair between the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Toronto Argonauts. And next Sunday afternoon, we'll have the 2nd game of that Toronto-Hamilton battle on CBC television. DeWalt throwing deep. Incomplete, intended for Fernandez. It will be 2nd and 10. The Lions would certainly love to play in another Grey Cup game here on home turf. And it's going to be quite a week, Grey Cup week 1986. It begins with the kickoff party on Wednesday, November the 26th. Then on Thursday, there's the CFL Vancouver Board of Trade Grey Cup breakfast. On Friday, the Miss Grey Cup pageant and dance. On Saturday, it's the annual Grey Cup dinner. Rich Little will be the featured entertainer. And on Sunday, the Grey Cup game itself. And you'll see that here on CBC television. Hope you'll be joining us. Penalty flag. Intended for Anthony Parker. Holding.
BC number 52.
Al Wilson was guilty of the holding call. I said to Al prior to the start of the ball game, well, how's the CFL's oldest player? He said, hold it, hold it. Ken Clark of Ottawa is older. And you came back and said, yeah, but you're the player.
That's right. I did say that. We had to give him a shot. Ken Clark being the kicker with the Ottawa Rough Riders. I said, Al, you're the player. You're the guy that's up front. He doesn't like to be called the oldest player.
So with 2:46 remaining in this 3rd quarter, the BC Lions are in a punting situation. The ball bounces short to Lou Pasaglia. He still gets a good kick away. Fumbled by Jefferson. Did he get it back? Yes, he did. James Jefferson has really had his problems today, hanging onto that football on both punt return attempts and on kickoffs.
That's been about the story of their offense, too. So, I mean, he's had trouble getting them the ball, and they've had trouble keeping it. See, he has it in his hands. It just slips through. Very fortunate to get it back. Marty Palzetti almost got the football.
Well, if the Blue Bombers harbor any hopes of pulling this one out, I think it's imperative that they do something before this 3rd quarter ends. And a man who is determined not to let them get anything going is Bob Skimp, who has moved in there in place of Walter Ballard, who has been disqualified from the football game. Going to Walt with 221 passing yards. Even though John Hufnagel has a better percentage this afternoon, he has not been able to accumulate the yardage of his BC counterpart. Penalty flags fly. There was movement at the line of scrimmage. The pass complete to James Murphy. He fumbles the ball. BC has recovered.
All right, Rains it forward.
Procedure, Winnipeg number 63, declined. First down, 54.
Larry Crawford comes up with the fumble recovery. And the Blue Bombers have self-destructed once again.
Well, they sure have. Look, the ball is a well-thrown football. It's complete. Slater slaps it right out of his hands. There they are, all around it. 28, Larry Crawford on top of the football.
First and 10. The ball is at the 36-yard line. 1:36 remaining in the third quarter. The reverse with Bert Fernandez. He could throw. Penalty flag on the play. Fernandez with all sorts of time.
Look at this.
Throwing for the wall. Well, DeWalt is protesting, but it would have been brought back anyway. But the BC Lions with a little razzle-dazzle delighting the fans.
DeWalt will be upset. All quarterbacks like to think they're great pass receivers. And here he had a chance. Well, I'll tell you what, Fernandez threw it a mile, but he had a chance to make the catch, and he couldn't hold on. He'll be disappointed in that.
Well, on many occasions, we have looked for the unexpected from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. It's the BC Lions who have been dipping into their bag of tricks in this Western semifinal.
A couple of reversals, couple of Statue of Liberties, and then Fernandez throwing a pass. So they've mixed it up, and they've given them everything.
Of course, the first time these two teams met this year, Fernandez threw an 86-yard pass to Ned Armour. Parker is stopped at the 35-yard line. Back on the 26th of June, that 86-yard pass was a Fernandez throw from out of the end zone.
That, I thought, was as great a call this year as I'd seen. To be backed up, you know, in the shadow of your own goalpost and to call a reverse pass to the flanker from inside the end zone, it takes a lot of guts. But you have a lot of confidence in number 24 when he has the ball in his hand. So if Fernandez can do it, he'll get it done.
His third down kick. Bounces back towards the line of scrimmage, is picked up by Scott Flagel, and he'll lose yards. He is stopped at the 35-yard line by Ian Sinclair. 32 seconds, the time remaining. Some discussion involving Scott Flagel and the officials. Flagel undoubtedly feeling that there should have been a no yards call, but further to that ruling on no yards, which we advised you of earlier, he grabbed the ball and number 42, Marty Palizzetti, gets out of the play. He does not get involved.
And the ball hit the ground. That was the key.
Boyd can't hang on. Keith Gooch decks in. Gooch has had an outstanding game at the corner.
Boy, he's challenging those receivers, and that's what it takes to play that position. It's the toughest position on that side of the ball to play. It's one-on-one, you with a guy with a lot of speed and ability, and you have to have the confidence to stick right with him, and he has been close to the receivers all day, and he had that key interception to open the game.
John Hufnagel operating really without his number one running back, Willard Reeves, ejected from the ball game. He has Pat Kantner and Sean Kehoe in those running back positions. Over the middle, complete to Poplawski. He fumbles. Loose football. Winnipeg has got it. Richard Nemeth still on his feet. inside the 40-yard line, and Hufnagel is hurt.
He took a heck of a hit. He really took a hit.
He was decked by Rick Clausen just as he threw the football. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers get a first down on the final play of the third quarter.
You know, when you talk about pressure on a quarterback, watch him. He'll throw the football, but watch the hit. Rick Clausen hit him, knocked him right over the top of the other linebacker, and down he goes. Now the ball goes loose. Richard Nemeth may want to play fullback after this. It's a heck of a play by him to catch it on the bounce, and now watch him run. The quarterbacks, a lot of times after they throw the football are hit, and they spend that next couple seconds on the ground, but he took a heck of a hit from Clausen. Watch, he comes from up high. This is what you like. Hit him up high. Get the arms around the arm. Stuman was the linebacker.
Was almost blocked into him. That's the reason Stuman came in at Hufnagel's feet. Hufnagel was able to get up and walk off to that Winnipeg bench. But Jim Zorn is going to move in there for at least one play.
Check with Hufnagel to see if he knows where he's at.
He has taken a pounding this afternoon. I've never seen this BC defensive unit as fired up as they are today.
Well, they're tough. You know, they say defense wins championships, and if that's the case, then they got a shot.
First and 10 from the 39-yard line. Zorn for Tuttle. It's deflected, incomplete. And Tuttle is very slow in getting to his feet.
Well, they have mixed everything up defensively today. This is Nelson Martin, the safety man. Now, a lot of times he'll come up and drop, but not this time. Right up the middle. He's looking right down the face of Jim Zorn as he throws this football. He looks for a hole, finds it, and here he comes. Tyrone Cruz got back and did a good job.
Second and 10, Winnipeg. Hufnagel is back in there. Hufnagel to the sidelines. James Murphy makes the catch. He goes out of bounds with a Winnipeg first down in front of Darryl Slater. And there's also a penalty flag on the play.
Major foul, face mask, BC number 4. First.
He grabbed Perry Tuttle's face mask, I believe, as he went by Nelson Martin.
Well, Don Matthews will be keeping an anxious eye on that scoreboard clock for the rest of this ball game. His team leading by a 21-0 margin. The deepest penetration the Blue Bombers have made in the football game.
You know, you can score 3 touchdowns in 15 minutes, so it's not out of reach, but I think to be realistic about it, they need the first one right now. They've got to get that 0 off the board.
Boyd goes wide to the left. The crowd noise has created the problems for John Hufnagel. He was unable to call his play at the line of scrimmage. They refer to the fans under the dome as being the 13th man, and they can definitely cause problems. Into the end zone. Touchdown, Perry Tuttle. 14:11 is the time remaining. And as you said, Ron, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers could get back in this ball game. They needed to put something on the board on this drive.
Just a quick sprint. You see Tuttle got an inside release, which means he's going to run a straight line now. If you get inside that defensive back, you just run. Nobody behind him. Tuttle makes the catch for the touchdown. So they make this. Kennard can put this through. We got ourselves a game.
Kennard with the point after. It's now 21-7. Perry Tuttle, the piano man, as he is nicknamed, with the major for Winnipeg, and we'll be back with the Blue Bomber kickoff after this.
Just a quick sprint to the left. Tuttle just gets inside his defender and runs as far as he can and as fast as he can. Hufnagel leads him, and it's 7 points.
The 9th touchdown of the year for Perry Tuttle, a former All-American at Clemson. Arriving in Winnipeg this year to pass his spare time, he took piano lessons and apparently is quite proficient at tinkling the old ivories. Trevor Kennard kicking off. Crawford takes it at the 18-yard line. he works his way out to the 35.
Well, the Bombers now need the big play from the defense. They would love to get a turnover right now while they've got a little bit of momentum going, maybe get that next touchdown, and then anything can happen.
.14:06 is the time remaining. Ball just shy of the 35-yard line. And on to Parker, but James West is there to straighten him up. And there's another injured player. Vernon Paul is down. He was hurt.
It's almost like James West was in the backfield that time. Boy, Vernon Paul's having a lot of problems.
Paul in a great deal of pain as trainer Ross Hodgkinson goes out there. James West was into that backfield so quickly, making the tackle on Anthony Parker.
In the huddle calling the play. See Blaine blocked down on Mikolas, and bang, James West is right into the backfield.
And right up at the top of the screen, you might see Vernon Paul get hit as he tries to get into the play. You see him go down just at the top of the screen, number 74. So now Ty Jones is pressed back into service, despite the fact that he limps onto the playing field.
Well, we said earlier, Don, that injuries, you know, you got to wind up and go now. There's no sense saving it for tomorrow.
Now we have an opportunity. A reminder that this program is copyrighted and is strictly for the private use of our audience. Any broadcast, transmission, or exhibition in whole or in part without the express written consent of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation is strictly prohibited. A strange injury to Vernon Paul in that he was coming in from the backside, and it almost appeared as though John Henry White got knocked into him and hit him down low and hit him in the back of the legs. But Paul was certainly in considerable pain as he went down. The announced attendance this afternoon, 40,381. A disappointing crowd. Many have been attempting to analyze why there was not a full house. Some suggested the fact that the teams were meeting for the third consecutive week. Others said because of a Saturday afternoon date when some people were still at work. And others said that there was anticipation of the television blackout being lifted. Vernon Paul being assisted off to that Winnipeg bench. So now Ty Jones comes back in. Tracy Mack is back in there. Delbert Fowler and James West, the other Winnipeg linebackers. And hit screen to Mervyn Fernandez trying to get outside. This time he won't escape as Delbert Fowler is over to help out Roy Bennett. Well, they are going to take a look at his left leg, and it appears they are looking at the ankle, although the initial reaction was that it might have been a knee.
Went down, you immediately think knee on artificial turf. It looked like somebody stepped on him, and I think it was Jan Carinci was blocking somebody else and just happened to step on him.
It's a punting situation for the BC Lions with 13:12 remaining. 21-7 is the score. So the Winnipeg defensive unit did its job. Now it'll be up to the offense to try and get things moving again. The ball is fumbled. Picked up by BC. Jamie Bulis was there. And James Jefferson ran right past that football, but he did touch it. And the Lions take over. To the delight of the majority of fans here at BC Place Stadium, that was Darrell Sampson attempting to field that third down punt on the run. He deflected it, and the BC Lions take over, and 4 turnovers now. And rather than get the ball close to midfield, the BC Lions retain possession with 12:50 remaining. Movement at the line of scrimmage, penalty flags all over the place.
Well, that should be illegal procedure on Roy DeWalt for backing out from the center without the ball. You know, you can shift to the shotgun if you don't put your hands under the center. Once you put those hands under, you can't come out of there without the football. Well, as you said, Don, the defense did their job. Shut them down in 2 plays. They had the opportunity to have the ball at midfield. And another miscue on special teams.
Vernon Paul is having that left ankle retaped. We noticed earlier he was walking on those sidelines, putting some weight on that foot. Hand off to Anthony Carter, trying to get outside. It won't work as James West is there. He has really played a strong game defensively for Winnipeg.
He's been everywhere. He's been the one real strong player, I think, defensively for the Bombers. But what we see is number 35, Tyrone Jones. If he will keep that angle right there and not let the ball carrier outside, you have a chance. So watch him. Tyrone Jones gets deep into the backfield, doesn't allow himself to be blocked in. That forces Parker to give ground, and West is there to make the tackle.
2nd and 19. From the shotgun. Roy DeWalt escapes the initial pressure, but again, James West was there to make the final hit with help from Tracy Mack. There's also a penalty flag in the play. I think this will be holding against BC.
Holding. BC number 20.
John Henry White is the man detected holding by the officials. So the Bombers get another opportunity.
Well, we'll see John Henry White right in the middle of the screen. He's got a pretty good hold on Tyrone Jones. Forces him to scramble out of there. People thought there should have been a roughing call on Tracy Mack as he came across him. Don't think he really hit him. Just kind of rolled across.
This time James Jefferson goes back. He's the only punt returner back. Takes the ball at the 8-yard line. Still on his feet, trying to get to the outside, and returns it to the 21, where he's stopped by John Elmer.
Well, they got the ball back in 2 plays, but it cost them 30 yards. And you see Cal Murphy swinging that hand around. That means, come on, John, let's hurry up. We're running out of time.
Well, James Jefferson actually did a pretty good job of picking up 12 yards on this return following the 44-yard boot by Lou Pasaglia, but he had to do a lot of running to get it.
Sure did, because they had the block. They were trying to block that kid, so he doesn't have any help at all back there.
Well, the Bombers have the type of offense that is certainly capable of striking quickly. Hufnagel to Perry Tuttle, out to the 41-yard line.
Well, they got those great receivers. You know, they're excellent core receivers, and they can move the football in a hurry. So they'll go to that hurry-up offense as Cal Murphy was signaling to John Hufnagel, let's get it going.
And the BC Lions aren't in any rush to get back into their defensive sets. Hufnagel trying to get to the outside to get a pass away. Now he decides to run with the ball and will be very close to a first down out to the 48-yard line.
Well, you have to give the linebackers of the BC Lions a lot of credit for staying deep. Allow Hufnagel to run, but don't come up to make the tackle and have him throw it over your head. They'll let Hufnagel run for 7 yards.
Linebacker coach Fred Glick talking to Rob Kodanovic and the other members of that defensive crew as to what he wants them to do the next time they're on the field. 10:32 is the time remaining. 2nd and 3, Winnipeg. The pitch to Perry Tuttle on the reverse. Tuttle gets the first down out to the 54.
Did a good job of running just to get that first down. Looked like the BC Lions were expecting it. They had a lot of orange jerseys out there, but somehow Tuttle twisted and turned and got it.
Walter Ballard disqualified for that altercation with Willard Reeves, has changed into civilian clothes and is at that BC bench. Hufnagel dumping it off to Sean Kehoe. This time Kehoe tucks the ball away. You may recall in the first quarter, carried that ball out there loose in one hand and had it stripped. And the BC Lions were able to convert it into a field goal.
You see him in trouble. I figured he didn't have a chance. They converged on him, Michael Gray and Parker. He just dumped it at the last minute. But he got the first down, and as you say,
He makes the catch to the 15.
They're going to call holding. Don is coming back.
Well, every time the Blue Bombers appear to do something right, there's either a penalty flag or a miscue somewhere else in the field that negates a very promising play.
Well, that was a shame. That's that pattern. Same pattern that Murphy caught there as the one that he caught in the first quarter when Nelson Martin hit him. Came right back and made the catch. They had it down there, and instead, right back at midfield, lose 10 yards.
9:15 is the time remaining. First and 20 for the Bombers at midfield. Hufnagel throwing deep. Tuttle's got him. He gets down to the 12-yard line, so Perry Tuttle, who was ignored for much of the first half as a receiver, in this fourth quarter has suddenly put the Bombers back in it.
I thought for sure when he threw the football, he was throwing to the wide receiver. Instead, Tuttle just ran right under it. A heck of a throw. I thought he was throwing to Boyd. Tuttle stays on his feet. He goes into the end zone because he'd beaten the last guy.
Winnipeg, 1st and 10 from the BC 12-yard line. Into the end zone for James Murphy. He can't catch it. Even had he made the reception, he would have been out of bounds.
Nothing wrong with that. They're in 3-down territory. They're not going to kick anything. Take it. Take the shot at it. Throw in the end zone. Let your best receiver go get it. And that's what he did. He just threw it out of bounds where if Murphy doesn't get it, nobody gets it.
8:19 is the time remaining. 21-7 is the score. The BC Lions leading Winnipeg. As we take a look at it from the end zone, Hufnagel will put it in the air. Touchdown, James Murphy. All of a sudden, we've got a football game, folks.
All of a sudden, the Winnipeg offense has come to life, and that's what we said when they said to put Hufnagel back in the ballgame. They'd given Zorn his chance. Hufnagel's the guy that has to do it. Watch him this time. He throws this ball with authority. We said if he could get time to step and throw, he threw it on the line to Murphy, over the end, into the end zone, touchdown. With 8 minutes left, we got a lot of things can happen.
Trevor Kennard attempting the point after. He puts it through, and with 8:04 left, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who were blowing out in the first half, have closed to within 7 points.
If he can get a chance to set up, pick his receiver, and throw. He threw it on the line, underneath the defensive back Slater, right into the arms of James Murphy. So with 8 minutes left on, the Bombers are coming back, and they have momentum on their side. So BC's got to get that momentum back right now.
Trevor Kennard preparing to kick off. 8:04 is the time left. The ball bounces out of bounds. They'll do it again. At the 17-yard line, it goes out, so they'll move it 5 yards further back. The Bombers have been guilty of a litany of errors this afternoon, and they still have an opportunity to win it.
That's surprising. You know, they could have been out of it in the first quarter. It could have been 21-0. Instead, they hung on, and all of a sudden the offense has come to life. Like there, Trevor Kennard had the right idea. What they wanted the ball to do was hit, take a crazy bounce, give them a chance to cover it. It just took the bounce and went out of bounds, so now they're forced to do it again.
Well, you certainly have to give the Blue Bombers full credit for what they've done in this second half. They refused to quit. They kept battling away despite the fact they trailed by 21. And now suddenly they are back in it.
Well, we said they could score 3 touchdowns in the last 15 minutes, and so they have scored 2 of it in 7 minutes. They got over half the quarter, and they can get another one. Anything can happen. They need that defense to come up big.
Kennard kicking in the same direction to Crawford. And Crawford spins away from one tackle, but then is stopped. Make that Slater. Is stopped at the 31-yard line.
A couple more guys down on the field. Vernon Paul, I've been really surprised to see him back in the ball game, but there he is, back out there at his linebacker position. It looked to me when he went off the field like he was finished. That is not Vernon Paul. Vernon Paul's in the huddle. Really couldn't see who that one was.
Well, this game has certainly taken its toll. Vernon Paul was hurt earlier, went to the bench, had his ankle retaped, and is back out there. Well, at halftime, you may recall, 289 yards net offense for the BC Lions as opposed to 88 for Winnipeg. Winnipeg Blue Bombers have been moving the football in this second half. And they are now within 7 points of the BC Lions with 7:58 still remaining on the clock.
I think it's Randy Baby, number 73.
That's who it is. Son of Martin Faby, who played with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and I'm sure he's looking in this afternoon at his home in Eastern Canada, talking about sons of former CFL stars. John Ulmer, who plays for the BC Lions, and the son of Ed Ulmer, who for many years was such an outstanding punter and defensive back for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Played against Ulmer and played with Faby. Had an opportunity to visit him when the Bombers were in the East. He was down to see that football game. Randy's limping off. I think he's going to be okay. He doesn't seem to be showing any ill effects of it right now, but Vernon Paul's going to surprise the big.
First and 10. The Lions at the 33. Fumbled by DeWalt. Who's got the ball? I think DeWalt was very fortunate that center Al Wilson was able to pounce on that football.
When that quarterback backs out from the center, if that ball goes forward, the quarterback's momentum's taking him away from the ball, so he is lucky that Wilson gets it. You see it bounces back. Looked like he dove back and got it. So that's a big play for them, but it cost them a down.
DeWalt trying to pass, gets it away. Hernandez takes the joke, but there's a penalty flag. I think it will be holding against the BC Lions.
Holding, BC number 65.
Gerald Roper was guilty of the holding call. Winnipeg declines the penalty. They rule it was an incomplete pass. Stan Mikowicz very slow in getting back to his feet, but he's going to remain out there.
Gerald Roper, the left guard, number 65, is called on holding. I believe it's James West coming from that linebacker position. Very fortunate. Fernandez caught the ball just as the ball hit his hands. He was hit by the linebacker Tracy Mack or Vernon Paul and just dropped the football. So the referee ruled it incomplete, but the Bombers will decline this because they want the football.
7:07 is the time left. Stan Mikowicz is still down. Mikowicz attended North Dakota. Joined the Blue Bombers in 1982. He's a Winnipeg product. He was with David Black a couple of weeks ago when they pulled into a service station to fill up David Black's car with gasoline. As part of the reward for shopping at that particular station, David Black received a scratch and win Western Express lottery ticket. He scratched, he won a brand new automobile. And it was Mikowicz who talked him into pulling into that particular station.
I wonder if he lets him ride in it.
Penalty flag on this third down punt by Lou Pasaglia. Flags, as a matter of fact, all over the place. The return by Jefferson. He is stopped at the 47-yard line by John Ulmer. But there was a flag at the line of scrimmage. Flags in the Winnipeg backfield. It could have been an illegal substitution or too many men.
I counted 13 white jerseys on the field.
The errors continue for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
So again, they have possession of the football. Another mistake on special teams. I think it's Vernon Paul, just from looking at the reaction on the Winnipeg bench. But he's not coming out. He's not the guy coming. Third down and 1. What do you do, Don? You're going to kick the football or you're going to go get it?
Well, it appears as though Pasaglia is going to stay out there.
Better hope they don't get caught with too many men this time, either. Vernon Paul was calling timeout. Can't call timeout. So you can't call timeout. Only in the last 3 minutes. That's going to get him 5 more yards, and that's the first down. And you cannot make those kind of mistakes.
Cal Murphy is beside himself at that Winnipeg bench. He just can't believe the errors that his team has been guilty of. Those are mental mistakes.
There's no doubt about it. Number one, you know whether you're on the special team or not. You should never have 13 out there. It's the player's responsibility to be either on the field or off the field in every situation.
Anthony Parker driving up to the 54-yard line. But more importantly, they run more seconds off that clock. It's now 6:19 remaining. Bob Molly made the tackle.
They have the football. The BC Lions have the football within 5 yards of where the Winnipeg punt returner brought it back when this whole thing started. So the time off the clock and field position are definitely not on the Bombers' side.
2nd and 7 for the Lions. DeWalt trying to get to the outside. He drills it in there, complete to Dan Parinci for a first down at the Winnipeg 44-yard line. And there's another injured Winnipeg player.
That's James West. James West was coming on a blitz, and he came from behind as Roy DeWalt really drilled this one. West came from the backside, and I believe he caught one in the stomach is where he was hanging on.
It seems on practically every play, a member of the Bombers has been going down, which is an indication of the hard-hitting ball game this one has been.
Well, James West is one of those players that plays with what coaches refer to as reckless abandon anyway. I mean, when he winds up to go, anything that gets in his way, he's going to try to run over it, and this time he took it. You see him coming from the back to hit the wall, so he takes the hit just as he hits the wall. Down he goes, down the wall goes, but the wall got up.
West is still down. I think every Winnipeg linebacker, with the exception of Delbert Fowler, has gone down at one point in this afternoon's ball game, and the strength of that Winnipeg defense is their linebacking crew.
Yeah, we better keep our eye on him. He's the only one that hasn't gone down. So we have Tyrone Jones in the ball game limping. He's out here. He's going to have to go in. We got Vernon Paul that had an ankle injury. Darrell Patterson's already missing. West is running off the field. He'll be back. I think he just lost his wind.
Well, that BC offensive line has been doing quite a job this afternoon. 1st and 10 for the Lions now. They are at the Winnipeg 44-yard line. They lead it by a score of 21-14 with 5:28 left in the game. The handoff to Anthony Parker. Parker still on his feet, still struggling, and is finally stopped at the 37-yard line.
Excellent job of running. He started out to his right. You see 5:07 on that clock as the time ticks away. The Bombers had possession with too many men on the field, and then a bad timeout call cost them.
James West back into the ball game. 2nd and 3. The give to Parker again. He'll be short of the first down by about 1.5 yards. Now, do they kick a field goal because they're within the range of Lou Pasaglia, or they try and go get us?
Well, I want to see just where this is. I think it's going to be just about 1 yard where they're putting it down. I think that they got to go get it because they know if they can use up the clock, they got the Bombers down around their own 35-yard line. But with Parker, if they can go get this first down, that's another couple minutes. Let's get to see just what it is. Just about 1 yard. I think you go get it. No time to get conservative. Only bad thing is Parker's the guy sitting on the ground. He's hurt. This could affect their decision. See what Matthews has got DeWalt over on the sidelines talking it over. See what they come up with.
Well, again, we remind you, this is the first of 2 Western semifinals. The other takes place tomorrow at Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton between the Eskimos and the Calgary Stampeders. Edmonton, the first-place team in the West. Calgary, 4th. Steve Armitage and Chuck Ely will be at Commonwealth Stadium to bring you that game. And the winner of that will, of course, face the winner of this one in the Western Final next weekend. The second game of that Total Point Eastern Final involving Hamilton and Toronto will take place next weekend as well. Ron Lancaster and I will be at CNE Stadium in Toronto to bring you that game. Those 2 teams stage the first half of that contest tomorrow at Iverwind Stadium in Hamilton. The Lions are going after it on 3rd and 1. Roy DeWalt has got it.
The way the offensive line has performed today for the BC Lions, there really wasn't much of a decision. They just have the confidence that they can get the yards when they have to have them. They really needed that. That's a big, big play because we're down around that 4-minute mark. Every minute is important, and they got everything going their way again.
Well, at one point, there was a big discrepancy in the number of first downs that the Lions had accumulated as compared to what Winnipeg had chalked up. But the Bombers, with their performance in this fourth quarter, have narrowed that gap. There's the pitch to Anthony Parker. He's back in the ball game. He's still going. First down. And he leaves a string of bodies in his wake. There was a penalty flag, though.
BC number 24.
A holding call against Merv Fernandez will wipe out that good run by Parker.
Well, you talk about good athletic ability. That's just what Parker showed us. You see John Henry White come around to block down, but watch James West. He knows where it's going. He will make the play, and Parker will jump over him. See, West knows where it's going. John Henry White's in position to block down. All right, he makes his block. Here comes West. Watch him dive out again to try to cut the legs out. Parker jumps right up over top of him. Good athletic ability.
4:05 is the time remaining, and the clock is running. The seconds ticking away. BC leading 21-14. First and 20 now, back at the 44-yard line. Penalty flag goes down again. It could be another holding call. Pass incomplete, and there's a penalty on the far side of the field as Brodanovic hit the wall, I believe, after he was out of bounds.
No, they're going to call intentional grounding. I really believe the wall just threw that ball away. Let's see what the referee says.
Intentional grounding, BC number 9.
Tough call to make because the ball was on the field of play and everything, but there really wasn't a BC Lion in the area where the ball hit the ground, but still it's a tough call to make.
Well, you were sharp in picking that one up. Over on the far side, that penalty flag came flying out directly in front of the BC bench, and the ball is now back at the Winnipeg 52-yard line. Second and 29. And the Lions are now out of field goal range. DeWalt does not get a chance to throw. He is dropped for a loss back at his own 50-yard line by Stan Mikowicz. 3:21 is the time remaining.
Well, DeWalt moved that pocket to the left again, and he was just going to turn and throw deep downfield to Fernandez, but that man 75, Stan Mikowicz. You see Tracy Mack to the outside. Mikowicz just keeps fighting past John Blaine finally and gets his hands on DeWalt. I thought the ball was going to pop out of DeWalt's hands.
Third down punt by Pasaglia. Jefferson takes it on a bounce and takes it out of bounds at the 27-yard line with 3:02 left in the ball game. Well, we could have a rather dramatic finish under the dome here at the stadium at BC Place. 3:02 is the time left. And we'll get those plays underway after we pause for this message. Now the Bombers are 3:02 away and about 88 yards away as well from getting back on even terms with the BC Lions. John Hufnagel will have problems calling those signals amidst the noise under the dome. Going deep down the sidelines. The catch is made. What a great reception by Perry Tuttle at the 33.
When he let the football go, number one, I thought it was a bad throw. I thought it was too far, but Tuttle really took off. You know, they say you can cover a lot of ground when the ball's in the air, but that's ridiculous. He just laid it down to the sidelines, and Tuttle never gave up and made a great catch. Hufnagel, you saw, took a heck of a hit, but you can't throw it any better, and you can't catch it any better. Watch the hit on John Hufnagel. Just as he lets it go, there it comes. It's tough being a quarterback.
Tuttle now with 6 receptions for 146 yards. Penalty flag as James Parker was in the Winnipeg backfield. Dumped off to James Murphy. There was no whistle on the play. There were penalty flags in that Winnipeg backfield as James Parker had not lined up.
Let's see what they call here. Referee shouldn't blow that whistle for play until Parker's on the other side.
Offside, BC number 40, declined, first down.
Heads up play. You know, when Parker heads up, they go, he may as well go ahead and throw him on the ground.
Offside, only by about 9 yards.
I've heard maybe he was in the huddle.
So Winnipeg has the ball at the BC 20-yard line with 2:40 remaining. First and 10 for the Bombers. Up they go for James Murphy at the 5.
Takes a lot of guts to throw that football. He threw that football into a three-man zone, and it's a heck of a catch. Watch the orange jerseys, and that ball just finds its mark. Look at it. Here comes Crawford. There's Cruz. Murphy makes the catch. Heck of a throw. No mistakes here.
Down at the 4-yard line now. Don Matthews looking on as the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have a first and goal from the 4. They get the ball to Kehoe up over the top. He stopped at the 1.
That's kind of a surprise. You know, they've been throwing and throwing and throwing. But, you know, right now you don't want mistakes. You know, we said before and many times, Don, don't make mistakes going in and don't make mistakes coming out because that'll get you in trouble. So they're down to the 1. Last week, if you remember, they didn't get in from the 1. That turned out to be a big play early in the game. But a little confusion again.
The Bombers made some substitutions there. Mark Moores, David Black into the ball game. They line up in the wishbone. John Kehoe, did he make it? No. .154 is the time remaining. A timeout has been called.
Good call. They had confusion on second down with who was in and who wasn't in the ball game. They don't want to make any mistakes here. They've called time. This could be the biggest play of the game. This is what they call a power eye. Watch him try to go over the top, and who's there? Nelson Martin and Michael Gray, Tyrone Jones, and they keep him out of there.
John Kehoe also holding that ball in a very dangerous position. But this is where the Bombers are really missing Willard Reeves.
That's what they dressed him for. They wanted him in the ball game today to give him that power running and pick up those real crucial yards. Well, that 1 yard down to that last stripe is the biggest, most crucial yard they've faced all day.
So it will be third and goal from the 1-yard line with 1:54 left to play. What a football game here under the dome. It was 21-0 at halftime, and it looked as though the BC Lions were destined for another appearance in a Western final. But they were unable to score any points in the third quarter, and much to the dismay of that man, Don Matthews, the Blue Bombers exploded in the fourth.
Boy, they sure have that offense. Once they got that 0 off the scoreboard, the offense came to life. And boy, I'll tell you, this 1 yard, this is the biggest play of the season, coming down to them guys up front.
In that power eye again, Sean Kehoe fumbles the football. It's still loose in the end zone. BC has recovered.
Talked about the defense all day on how well they played. When you have your backs to the wall 1 yard away from a big game, James Parker's the injured ball player on the field, but between Parker, Gray, and Martin, watch this hit. Comes off tackle, watch it. James Parker right at the waist. Nelson Martin, Kehoe didn't have the ball put away, and you see the result.
It looked as though he was also going to be into that end zone.
Boy, it was getting down there. But that ball is loose, and Michael Gray comes up with it. Now we get the good look. Here comes Tyrone Cruz. Parker's underneath. Martin, Cruz, and Gray ends up with the ball in the end zone.
And Rick Clausen is the injured BC player. But the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have just destroyed themselves today with errors.
Well, we said before, the players told us before the game it would be mistakes that would determine the winner. So far, they knew what they were talking about.
Clausen is up, walking off. I think if Cal Murphy had an opportunity to call those plays over again, he might opt for the pass from that 4-yard line.
When you're 1 yard away, you got to get it.
John Henry White is stopped after a gain of a couple of yards. There's the man who grabbed that ball in the end zone, Mike Gray. It looked as though Winnipeg was going to drive it in and tie the game. 1:44 is the time left in the clock.
Got a BC man down.
Dan Carinci is the injured player.
Well, 1:44. Now you got to start looking at it. They can shut them down here on second down. They're still going to have a minute. And they can do it. But boy, I'll tell you, it's got to be really disheartening when you get down to that 1 yard line, can't get it in. Excellent defensive stand. That BC line defense has been tough all day, and there's no bigger time to come up when you're 1 yard away from winning or losing.
21-14 the score. 1:44 the time left. 2nd and 8. The BC Lions at their own 27-yard line. Dan Carinci, the injured player. It appeared as though the Winnipeg Blue Bombers were going to put the tying points on the board in a rather miraculous fourth quarter comeback. But Don Matthews' defensive crew came up with 3 sensational plays from inside the 4-yard line.
And you know what was amazing to me? When they stopped them and they showed the shot of Don Matthews on the sideline, he just stood there very cool and calm, like, I knew it was going to happen. I don't buy that, but that's what it looked like.
This is a big play right here as Roy Wall throws it over the middle, incomplete, intended for Sandusky.
Stan Mikowicz again in on top of the wall. And the big thing about that on the incomplete pass now, in the last 3 minutes, that clock won't start. They're going to get the chance. They're going to have that minute.
Well, the Blue Bombers now should get the ball back fairly close to their own 45 or 50-yard line.
Boy, Sandusky was open underneath, but Stan Mikowicz just kept coming. Made a good hit on him. So now the last-minute instructions to Hufnagel. He doesn't have his timeout, but he knows how to use the clock.
3rd down punt by Pasaglia. Jefferson takes it at the 45-yard line. And he is stopped at the 42. 1:15 is the time left. Keith Gooch was there to make the tackle. Hufnagel now will try and get those plays underway quickly.
Yeah, they'll huddle up for the first one, but that'll be it. If they don't get out of bounds, they'll be on the ball all the way down the field. Minute 15 is a lot of time for a quarterback.
Over the middle to Sean Kehoe. Caught by Tyrone Cruz and wrapped up at the 48-yard line with 1:09 left.
Boy, Kantner had the idea. They dumped to Kehoe. Kantner was coming from the other way, tried to block Cruz, just couldn't get him. If he makes the block on Cruz, they'd get 10 or 15 yards. Might have to do it again.
The clock now running over the middle to James Murphy, intercepted by Larry Crawford.
Larry Crawford made the interception. But the guy that caused the interception was number 91, Tyrone Cruz, who was about 20 yards deep. Here he is right here. Watch how deep he is, and the ball has to go over his head, and Murphy couldn't locate it. He gets back, he gets back. Watch number 91. He forced him to throw it high over top of Murphy's head.
1:01 the time remaining. Handoff to Anthony Parker. If he gets a first down, that should pretty much be the ball game. He's stopped by Ken Haley. And I suppose there are many BC fans who will say it's fitting that Larry Crawford, the all-time leader in interceptions, should come up with the theft that appears to have preserved a win for the BC Lions.
Well, Crawford also made a big play early in the game when he hit James Boyd coming into the middle. So he's been in the game, whether he's picking them off or hitting people.
Second down play, Parker, first down. And now with just 44 seconds left, the BC Lions should be able to run off the final seconds on the clock.
Yeah, no problem now. You got 3 downs and 44 seconds. Nothing to this.
Anthony Parker is the injured BC player with 44 seconds left. The members of that defensive squad celebrate at the BC bench. Anthony Parker has carried 22 times for 112 yards.
Cal Murphy's got to be very disappointed. You know, they came back in that fourth quarter with the opportunity to tie this football game and couldn't get it that final yard. We said they'd win it and lose it up front, and that's exactly what happened today.
Well, you have to admire the character of this Winnipeg football club, though, being down 21-0, coming back in the fourth quarter. They were within an inch or so of tying the ball game. And now it has to be terribly disappointing for the team to realize that their season is going to end because of the numerous errors they committed, both physically and mentally, under the dome.
Both coaches told us mistakes. Tyrone Cruz told us mistakes. I don't know how many of the ball players we talked to down there all said the same thing. They're equal in ability. Whoever makes the fewest mistakes will win. And that's exactly the way it turned out.
Roy DeWalt watching the final seconds tick away. And he'll take that clock right down before calling for the ball. 2 seconds left. And now he'll have no problem in taking those final 2 seconds off that clock. But what a football game here at BC Place Stadium. In the first half, it appeared as though the game was over. It was 21-0 for the BC Lions. When the Winnipeg Blue Bombers failed to score in the third quarter, most, I'm sure, were ready to write them off. But they staged a comeback and came oh so close to pulling it off. DeWalt was down in one knee, and that's the ball game. The BC Lions will advance to the Western Final against either Edmonton or Calgary.
And if they think this was a good one today, that one tomorrow will be just as good.
Well, Don Matthews, the victorious coach, he realizes what a football game his troops were involved in this afternoon. Frustrating, disappointing for Cal Murphy as he heads off to that Winnipeg dressing room. But he has to admire the play of his team, the way they fought back in the fourth quarter.
They showed a lot of character. You know, they could have given up numerous times today. Going into the fourth quarter, trailing 21-0 to the BC Lions, you could roll over and say, well, we had a good year and we gave it a good shot. But they came back, so you have to admire the character of the club.
Two of the outstanding defensive players congratulating each other, James West and James Parker. And those individuals certainly stood out during the entire football game. It was a football game that kept the fans in their seats right to the final whistle, and Don Matthews has now joined us on the sidelines. Coach, that was some ball game.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
You're going to have some problems, Coach. That was quite a ball game this afternoon. 21-0. It looked as though you were home and cooled out.
Well, you know, I think that the winner, the BC Lions, just survived this last 3-game series. And the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are a tough football team. And, boy, they never gave up. I really congratulate Cal Murphy and his staff and his players because they could have given up, and they didn't want to.
Don, I was saying on that third down on the 1-yard line, when you stopped them, they showed a shot of you on the sideline, very cool, calm, and collected. I don't really think you were like that inside, were you?
No, I never am, Ronnie. You know, I'm just trying to think what I'm going to have to do next to try to get through the game and try to get to the next playoff game. And but my insides are turning pretty good.
Was that as physical a football game on the field as it appeared from up here?
Oh, without a doubt. You know, every time these two guys play, they just go at each other and hit each other pretty hard. And as I said, the BC Lions are the survivors. It's like a war. Boy, am I glad it's over.
Coach, you showed a lot of razzle-dazzle today. Mervin Fernandez was a key factor. He put on a bit of a clinic in that second quarter.
Yeah, you know, Merv, he dropped some passes earlier in the year because he came back from a broken hand, but he's really been getting his timing down and doing some great stuff for us, and he's just that exceptional athlete that you're always going to have something big out of Merv.
Coach John Matthews, congratulations on a thrilling victory this afternoon to advance to the Western Final.
Thanks a lot.
So the BC Lions will now await the winner of tomorrow's other Western semifinal, Edmonton against Calgary, a game you'll see on CBC television. We'll be back after this. Chief Game Stars, difficult choices to make, Ron Lancaster.
Well, defensively especially. I mean, that BC Lion defense was as strong a football club today as you mentioned earlier that we've seen all year.
Well, we won't keep you in suspense any longer. Our selections, James Parker of the BC Lions and Mervin Fernandez of the BC Lions. Fernandez with a 2-touchdown performance this afternoon. He put on a bit of a clinic, as we mentioned, in that second quarter, and it seemed Parker was in that Winnipeg backfield all afternoon, even on one occasion when he was 9 yards offside.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of neat. I hadn't seen that before, but what a game today, and we're going to see an even better one tomorrow, Calgary and Edmonton. I really think so.
So the BC Lions advance to the Western Final with their 21-14 victory over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Now to CFL Control and Brian Williams.
All right, thank you, Don Whitman. Good, exciting football game. Ron Lancaster, you said there should be an even better one tomorrow. Steve Armitage and Chuck Ely will have the Calgary Stampeders and the Edmonton Eskimos. Let's compare these two teams over first the regular season and then the playoffs. The Calgary Stampeders and the Edmonton Eskimos. Edmonton winning all 3 games this season. 2 of them, however, were close. Let's take a look at the playoff records between these two Alberta teams, going back to 1960, and it is dead even again at 4:30 Eastern tomorrow afternoon. That game with Steve Armitage and Chuck Ely live here on CBC television. A couple of good university football games today. The Western Ontario Mustangs over the Acadia Axemen 29-22. Blake Marshall 193 yards and 24 carries for the Mustangs, ranked number 2. In Quebec today in the Central Bowl, the UBC Thunderbirds, ranked number 1, received quite a scare before finally subduing the Bishop's Gators by 2 points. The Gators missed a 2-point conversion in the final minute of play. So in the Vanier Cup next Saturday, numbers 1 and 2, UBC and Western. The National Junior Final played this afternoon. That was at Taylor Field in Regina. The Regina Rams all over the Ottawa Sooners 53-12. Just a reminder, Hockey Night in